Chapter 34-35. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. This young man is so fair. Protection fee? For everyone's safety? Persuading people with virtue. I really admire your mother. After hearing Yi Xian's words, the experts from the various great powers in the surrounding fleets from the three great universes were stunned for a moment. Then they were all enraged. All of them glared at Yi Xian fiercely, as if they would never submit. Although the universe realm expert from the battle lion race was in a miserable state, he deserved it. He was courting death by provoking the Yin demon clan. He deserved to end up like this. However, the experts of the various forces in the surrounding fleets were all innocent. They had nothing to do with the Yin devil clan or this shameless netherworld young master. If they were blackmailed by him even like this, they really couldn't swallow their resentment. How could he have the face to say that it's fine if it's just a little bit and use the compensation standard of that universe realm elder from the battle lion race? He had been blackmailed with a small space box of cultivation resources and a fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. With such a standard, some of the fleets in the surrounding void couldn't even take out such a standard. Some of the powers had come with 10,000-meter-long fortresses or even 3,000-meter-long ordinary stellar-level battleships to join in the fun. According to that standard, even if they pawned the underwear of all the experts in the fleets, they still wouldn't be able to gather enough. Besides, why should they pay a protection fee for no reason? Right now, there were over 100 great forces in the surrounding void. Could it be that the Netherworld young master could annihilate all of them in a fit of rage? If that was the case, he would never think of leaving the Netherworld Turtle Sea again. He would just hide here and live out the rest of his life. Once he went out, he would be suppressed immediately. He had offended all the top powers in the three universes. How could he survive outside? With that in mind, all the experts in the fleets immediately shut their mouths. At this moment, they absolutely could not be the first to stand out. That guy was probably thinking of making an example out of the unlucky one to set an example for the rest. Because of this, the few fleets that were retreating quickly and wanted to leave this dangerous place as soon as possible all stopped as if they had agreed. They couldn't run at this time, or they would immediately be targeted. For a time, the entire expanse of space was so silent that a pin drop could be heard, and the atmosphere was strange to the extreme. Seeing this, Yi Xian's expression immediately darkened. Looks like they aren't giving me any face at all. Could it be that they really think that the law won't punish the majority and I won't be able to do anything about it? Wasn't it just to catch a bird that stuck its head out and kill the chicken to warn the monkey? This ancestor has plenty of ways to complete this matter reasonably. I will definitely not allow anyone to find fault with it, lest this group of people find fault and come together to seek revenge, which will mess up the situation. Thinking like this, Yi Xian sneered inwardly, but his expression remained unchanged. He slowly turned his head and swept his gaze over the starry sky masters around the fleets. Suddenly, he saw two familiar figures next to the fleet of the immortal army from the dynasty. The imperial family's elder, Long Ziwen, and the eldest prince, Long Xiang. Among the 5 princes, Long Xiang was originally the one with the greatest chance to become the crown prince of the dynasty. Ever since Prince Xian was sent to the Death Master Starfield, he was the most active of the 5 princes. Previously, when he went to the Heavenly Battle Starfield, Yi Xian, using the identity of young Master Linghu, had beaten him into a pig's head. He didn't expect this guy to be so thick-skinned. The swelling on his head had probably just disappeared not long ago, but he actually ran to the Netherworld Turtle Sea of Universe 2. He clearly wanted to seize the primordial treasure Yen Luo, so that he could use it as a bargaining chip to obtain the crown prince of the dynasty in the future. It's him. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's lips curled up. He raised his hand and pinched his thumb and middle finger, then winked at the eldest prince, Long Xiang, who was in the distant void. Then he smiled charmingly and said softly, "This little brother's face is so fair. Come, I like people with fair skin the most. I met one before, but I didn't expect to be so disappointing. It's rare to meet a little brother again. Come, this ancestor serves. No, I should treat you to a drink." As he spoke, he raised his hand and waved at the eldest prince, winking at him. "Oh my God!" The latter was caught off guard and was so frightened that he cried out for his mother on the spot. He almost fell on his butt in the void. His face turned green in an instant, full of horror. How could this perverted old monster be up to no good when he called him over? What treating him to a drink? It was simply nonsense. He couldn't wait to blurt it out. He was obviously going to serve the hole behind him. The example of Hongdo Lifeng was still in front of him. That was the result of him directly poking the hole until it cracked. When he thought of that result, half of Long Xiang's soul flew away. His face turned from green to white in an instant. He looked at the imperial elder, Long Ziwen, with a sad face. With tears streaming down his face, he begged bitterly, "Ancestor, Ancestor Ziwen, save me, save me." In the face of this unexpected scene, the imperial elder Long Ziwen was also dumbfounded. Then his face became incomparably gloomy, but he didn't say anything for a while. He was secretly calculating and analyzing in his heart. Yi Xian suddenly pointed his spear at Long Xiang. Did he really take a fancy to his soft skin and tender flesh, or did he do it on purpose? His goal was to provoke a dispute and make an example out of him. If it were another time in another place, this kind of thinking and consideration would naturally be unnecessary. However, it was different now. The old monster opposite was too strong. Even the star domain's will of the entire sea of hellish turtles was in his hands. Even with Long Ziwen's almighty means, he couldn't jump around at all. Didn't he see the local tyrant of the second universe, the Chenkuan elder of the battle lion race, which was ranked third among the various races of the Federation, being dealt with so miserably? Long Xiang was the eldest prince of the dynasty, so he naturally had to be saved. However, it was also because of this that he had to be more cautious. In the face of the current situation, if he wanted to put on airs as an almighty in the universe, it would definitely not end well. It didn't matter if he, Long Ziwen, was beaten up and lost face. However, if he really allowed the eldest prince of the dynasty to be toyed with by that old pervert, the entire immortal dynasty's reputation would be swept to the ground. That would be a great sin. Thinking of this, Long Ziwen's eyes couldn't help but flash. At this moment, he had even prepared for the worst. If it really couldn't be done, even if he had to personally kill Long Xiang on the spot, he definitely couldn't let the old monster toyed with him. Although it would also be a great loss of face, at least the dynasty's reputation would be preserved. This flash of light from the bottom of Long Ziwen's eyes was coincidentally seen by Long Xiang, who was pulling on his lapel and pleading. He knew this patriarch Ziwen very well. At the same time, as the imperial prince of the immortal dynasty, Long Xiang and Long Ziwen's perspective on this matter were basically the same. Therefore, he immediately understood the meaning of this flash of light. In an instant, a deep sense of despair surfaced in Long Xiang's heart. He didn't want to die. Chapter 34-36. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. What a pain in the ass. For Long Xiang, this was too much for him to accept. His future was definitely limitless. Soon, he would be able to obtain the position of crown prince of the dynasty. How could he die prematurely? Because of something that no one else could talk about. He was unwilling, he was unwilling. He was on the verge of being driven mad. He was on the verge of hysteria. The rims of his eyes had instantly turned blood red. Since Patriarch Z1 was unreliable and he had prepared for the worst, he could just kill him on the spot to protect the reputation of the imperial dynasty. Then, he could only rely on himself. With bloodshot eyes, Long Xiang looked around, trying to find a way to divert this disaster. Hongdo and Lai Feng's miserable state had left too deep an impression on him. He had never considered the possibility that this abnormal old monster was deliberately stirring up trouble, using this opportunity to find a bird that stood out and kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Even if he had considered it, he did not dare to gamble. This concerned his own life. Therefore, he would rather believe that the old monster in front of him really liked fair and clean people because this was his only hope. If the old monster really liked fair and clean people, then with so many starry sky experts in the surrounding void, wouldn't it be possible to find someone more pleasing to the old monster's eyes than him? If it was in the past, he, who liked to put on a pretentious and benevolent image, would naturally not do such a thing in front of so many powerhouses. But now, he couldn't care less about it at all. His bloodshot eyes quickly swept over the three girls, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, who were not far away. The three girls were all devastatingly beautiful women. Naturally, they were many times fairer and more pleasing to the eye than him. However, this perverted old demon seemed to have a liking for men. He wondered if he would fancy these three girls. Long Xiang was nervous, but he could not care less. He had to take a gamble. He immediately raised his hand and pointed at the three girls, the purplish warbler and Duanmu Xiaocha, and shouted, "Patriarch, if you want to talk about fair and clean, how can I be as fair and clean as those three? Look, her skin is as tender as jade, and her skin is as smooth as cream. That's the best." The expressions of old man Shen Yuan, the representatives of the Duanmu family, and Bodhi biogenetics changed drastically when they heard this. Their gazes were filled with hostility. "First Prince, what is the meaning of this? This is too much." "That's right. You are so shameless. You are a direct descendant of the dynasty. How dare you do this in front of the elites from the top factions of the three universes? Patriarch Z1, I don't think it's appropriate. The imperial family should give us an explanation." Long Ziwen's face instantly turned gloomy, but he didn't say anything. Instead, a glimmer of hope appeared in his heart. He subconsciously looked at the void where the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were. The three girls were absolutely stunning. Any man would be tempted by them. However, the old monster opposite them seemed to like Long Xiang. He wondered if this plan would work. That was right. Although Long Xiang's plan was unkind and would more or less cause the immortal dynasty to be criticized behind their backs, it was not a serious matter. After all, it would be resolved with a little explanation. It was better than letting the first prince of the imperial family be humiliated or killed in front of everyone. Therefore, even in Long Ziwen's heart, he actually agreed with Long Xiang's plan. How could he care so much when it was a matter of life and death? Seeing his reaction, old man Shen Yuan, the leader of the Duanmu family, and the representative of Bodhi biogenetics were so angry that their faces turned green. Their chests were heaving up and down. Even Patriarch Long Ziwen, who led the team from the dynasty, had this idea. What else could they say? Even if they could complain to the dynasty about this, they could not continue to reprimand him. Moreover, their hearts were in their throats at this moment. That perverted old demon was indeed lustful. This had already been proven. That cracked part of Hong Do's Liefeng's body was proof. However, a pervert with lustful desires might not necessarily dislike women. Those three girls were so fair and attractive. If the old guy was really moved by them. Thinking of this, old man Shen Yuan and the other two felt their hearts twitch. They looked at the void where Yi Xian was standing in horror. At the same time, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru did the same. They looked at Yi Xian with cold smiles and actually took the initiative to talk to him. "Oh, Patriarch Huan, is it? You're very hospitable. You're an existence who lived from the primordial age to the present. Since you like to drink so much, could it be that your father also made some spiritual wine from the primordial age and sealed it with you and kept it until today? That's good stuff. Are you really going to let others taste it?" "Of course we are. The three of us are girls. I guess we don't meet your requirements? But since we're so fair and clean, why don't you make an exception and let us drink a pot of wine? Since you didn't say anything, we'll take your silence as a yes. We're coming. Sisters, let's go." As they spoke, the three girls' figures flashed, and their faces darkened as they shot toward the void where the Een Demon Clan's camp was located. This scene was too strange, and it stunned all the experts in the surrounding void. The expressions of old man Shen Yuan, Clan Master Duanmu, and the person in charge of Bodhi biogenetics changed drastically. Their entire minds were completely dumbfounded at this moment. They didn't know what the three girls were doing all of a sudden. Looking at their attitude, it seemed that they couldn't wait to jump into that perverted old demon's 9 dragons Azure Phoenix chariot and let him play with it. As for the first prince, Long Xiang, who had been thinking about whether or not his plan would succeed, he opened his mouth wide in surprise. His face was filled with shock as he muttered to himself, Is this prince hallucinating?" As for Yi Xian, he was defeated in an instant. When he subconsciously turned his head and met the eyes of the three girls, Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bad feeling. And now, as the words of these three girls came out of their mouths, it completely confirmed the guess in his heart. Damn it! Do these three girls really have the same nose as a dog's? This young master already has the netherworld physique. How could they still recognize me? Of course, it didn't matter if they recognized him, but the key was that he had promised last time that the next time they met, he would definitely refine their armor a second or even third time. Unfortunately, he did not have the time to fulfill this promise. The materials and armor for the last 2 times were still in Yi Xian's undying world. Looking at the three girls, it was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. If he could not complete the task this time, he was afraid that they would come to settle the score with him. Thinking of this, Yi Xian subconsciously shrunk his neck. He turned around and hid in the 9 Dragons' Azure Phoenix chariot behind him. Sorry, this ancestor is feeling a little unwell. I need to rest for a while. When they saw this scene, Shen Yuanziying and the other 2 girls who quickly arrived immediately started teasing him. Feeling a little unwell? Ancestor, are you okay? Keske. You're feeling unwell after seeing us 3 beauties. Ancestor, your behavior is very suspicious. Chapter 34-37. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Old bastard, how dare you? Bang, bang. When Yi Xian heard the 2 words, he felt his vision go dark. He almost fell down from the 9 Dragons' Cyan Phoenix carriage. These 3 girls seemed to hold a deep grudge against him. They were even more ferocious than before. No, this time, he couldn't fool them, otherwise, something big would definitely happen. Fortunately, their armor had only been refined once before. Even if he refined it twice now, it wouldn't take much time. I just need to ask them to wait outside for a while. However, this matter is too strange. I have to explain it. Otherwise, the experts of the various forces in the void will be suspicious. It will be troublesome if I ruin it. Although Yi Xian didn't turn around, his voice was loud and clear. 3 beauties. Please wait for a while. This ancestor's 9 Dragons' Cyan Phoenix carriage is a little messy. 3 beauties. I can't be rude and make a fool of myself. Please wait for a while. I'll clean it up right away. Hearing this, the experts in the fleets of the various forces in the void suddenly understood. Disdain appeared on their faces. This old man is really bad. He kills both men and women. Moreover, he seems to be even more impatient when it comes to women. When he saw the 3 beauties coming to him, he was afraid that the mess in the carriage would make the beauties unhappy. He actually hurriedly went inside to clean up first. Only old man Shen Yuan, clan master Duanmu, and the person in charge of Bodhi biogenetics were anxious like ants on a hot pot. They couldn't wait to rush over and snatch the 3 purplish warbler girls back. Unfortunately, they didn't dare to do that. Because if they did, they would be the ones who stood out. They were afraid that they would be killed on the spot by that temperamental perverted old demon as a warning to the rest. In addition, in another void, the elder of the Heaven Battle Emperor clan, Jianghu, frowned and subconsciously exchanged glances with the ancestor next to him. The latter's eyes flashed. Although he didn't say anything, he raised his hand and pinched his fingers to calculate. His bald eyebrows were tightly knitted. At this time, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru had also arrived beside the 9 Dragons' Cyan Phoenix carriage. The 3 girls obviously saw through Yi Xian's thoughts and snorted. Seeing that he wanted to make up for it, they didn't say anything more and just stood beside the carriage. Yin Qi, Yin Ba, and Yin Jiao hurriedly came over with smiles on their faces and carefully served them. This was the prey that the ancestor had his eyes on. Moreover, from the ancestor's reaction, he seemed to be very nervous. They had to serve them carefully. Who knows, they might become their 3 ancestors in the future. If the 3 purplish warbler girls knew what they were thinking at this time, they would probably go crazy and kill them on the spot. With Yi Xian holding the fort, no matter how high the 3 old men's cultivation was, they definitely wouldn't dare to fight back. After entering the 9 Dragons' Cyan Phoenix carriage, Yi Xian didn't dare to delay at all. He immediately entered the carriage's secret chamber. After activating the restriction, he immediately took out the 3 girls' armors from the undying world in his body, as well as 3 treasures for the second refinement. Then, he immediately ordered the devouring system to start the second refinement. Although the 3 sets of armor were being refined at the same time, both the system and Yi Xian were far from what they were in the past. They had grown too much, and the 3 sets of armor were only being refined for the second time, so it wasn't too complicated. Therefore, after the time it took to eat a meal, the refinement was completed. Yi Xian didn't stop. He took out the treasures for the third refinement and immediately started the refinement again. This time, the refinement took slightly longer, but it only took about an hour before it ended. Fortunately, there weren't any accidents along the way. In less than 2 hours, the 3 armors were successfully refined for the third time. They were completely different from before, dazzling and dazzling. This time, I can finally report back. Yi Xian raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. He heaved a long sigh of relief and stepped out of the 9 Dragons Cyan Phoenix carriage. When he turned around, he saw the 3 purplish warbler beauties with cold faces. He immediately put on a smile on his face. 3 beauties, I'm sorry. It's really too messy inside. It took a while to clean up, but there's no problem now. Please come in, come in. After he finished speaking, he turned around and scolded. What are you waiting for? This ancestor wants to entertain the human beauties. Why are you staying here and being an eyesore? Get out now, all of you. There were originally hundreds of beautiful demon maids in the 9 Dragons Cyan Phoenix carriage. When they heard Yi Xian's scolding, they all immediately moved and walked out of the carriage. Then, Yi Xian led the 3 purplish warbler beauties into the Phoenix carriage. Old man Shen Yuan, family head Duanmu, and the person in charge of Bodhi biogenetics in the void in the distance beat their chests and stamped their feet, but they couldn't do anything. The fleets in the surrounding space didn't leave because it was meaningless. Unless they retreated from the Nether Turtle Ocean, otherwise, no matter how far they fled, the Nether Turtle Ocean would be able to instantly annihilate them with a mere will projection of the primordial Nether Turtle. After all, the Nether Turtle Ocean was huge enough to cover the entire Nether Turtle Ocean. At the same time, inside the 9 Dragons Cyan Phoenix carriage. After the hundreds of demon maids left, this was the world of Yi Xian and the purplish warbler beauties. As a primordial treasure, the 9 Dragons Cyan Phoenix carriage didn't have any offensive abilities. All of its power was reflected in defense and extravagance. Therefore, even the most powerful beings in the universe couldn't spy on everything inside the Phoenix carriage. This was something that all the major powers had tested before. The 3 purplish warbler beauties all knew this, so they immediately relaxed when the Phoenix carriage's curtains fell. Little Xianxia, you're really something. The outside world thought you were exiled to the turbulent void. I didn't expect you to be living so comfortably. I haven't seen you for a few days, and you're actually an ancestor of a clan and hundreds of beautiful maids. Is this a money-squandering cave? Are you drunk and dreaming? So what? You don't even have the mood to care about our precious armor. Don't think we don't know that you were cramming for nearly 2 hours just now, right? Humph humph, you didn't take my important matter seriously. You decide how you want to settle this matter. As they spoke, the 3 beauties frowned and looked like they were about to rush out and expose Yi Xian's true identity and background. Yi Xian immediately panicked. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out the 3 female cultivators' precious armors that had just been refined for the 3rd time. In an instant, the 9 Dragons Azure Phoenix carriage was overflowing with precious light. The 3 precious armors floated in front of Yi Xian. It was too beautiful. The 3 beauties immediately cried out in surprise. Wow! Oh yeah! Heavens, heavens! Because they were too excited and their voices were too loud, Yi Xian didn't turn on the 9 Dragons Azure Phoenix carriage's restriction to silent mode. Therefore, the 3 beauties' cries accidentally spread out and were heard by the experts of the major powers in the surrounding void. Old man Shen Yuan, Clan Master Duanmu, and the person in charge of Bodhi biogenetics were immediately enraged. They even thought that the old pervert in the Phoenix carriage had gone berserk and was forcing himself on them. They couldn't care less about anything else and rushed out with a roar. Old bastard, how dare you! Wow, you're too shameless. Chapter 34-38. Suspicion creeps in. Oh no, we seem to have screamed too coquettishly. The people outside seem to have misunderstood. Aya, you damned girl, what do you mean we screamed too coquettishly? You're going to be the death of me. It's all this guy's fault. He made our armor so beautiful and mighty. The sisters couldn't help themselves. Shen Yuanziying, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru all cried out in alarm when they heard the angry roars of old man Shen Yuan and clan master Duanmu. Duanmu Xiaocha, who had always been a loose talker, suddenly blurted out a coquettish word. Shen Yuanziying and Zhao Qianru immediately blushed and chased after her to beat her up. For a moment, the 9 Dragons Azure Phoenix carriage was filled with boundless spring breeze. The 3 peerless beauties were far more charming than the 100 demon clan maids from before, causing Yi Xian to be stunned. Fortunately, the 3 girls knew their limits and knew that now was not the time to make a fuss. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if old man Shen Yuan and the rest were to fight with Yin Qi and the others outside. They didn't even have the time to carefully appraise the armor that had just been refined for the 3rd time. After hurriedly handing over the treasures for the 4th time to Yi Xian, they reluctantly walked out of the 9 Dragons Azure Luan carriage. Before the 3 girls lifted the curtain, Yi Xian had already kept the 3 armor and the treasures that had been refined for the 4th time into his undying world. Then he regained his composure and followed the 3 purplish warbler girls out of the 9 dragons azure phoenix carriage with his hands behind his back. Although the 3 of you are fair and clean, you're still too noisy. You don't even have a lump in your throat. This ancestor really doesn't like it. Quickly leave, otherwise don't blame this ancestor for slapping you to death. As soon as they exited the 9 dragons azure phoenix carriage, Yi Xian's expression darkened. He looked at the 3 purplish warbler girls who had grievances written all over their faces and sternly scolded. Humph! You wasted 3 cups of this ancestor's spirit wine for nothing. At this moment, Old Man Shenyuan, Patriarch Duanmu, and the person in charge of Bodhi biogenetics were right in front of the 9 dragons azure phoenix carriage. When they saw the 3 ladies of the purplish warbler, who were completely unscathed, and their dresses and hairpins were not messed up at all, coupled with Yi Xian's words, they immediately understood what was going on. They stared at him as if they had just seen a ghost, completely speechless. After messing around for so long, this old man was actually a serious homosexual. 3 such delicate beauties delivered themselves to his door, but because they didn't have an Adam's apple, they were actually chased out. What the F***ck? Old Man Shenyuan and the other 2 didn't dare to say anything on the surface. They hurriedly dragged the 3 ladies of the purplish warbler, who were still praising the ancestor spirit wine, and hurriedly returned to their respective space fortresses. Next, they would definitely send someone to ground the 3 girls. They were really troublesome and had such big guts that it made people's hair stand on end. They had to be on guard. In the surrounding void, in the fleets of the top forces from the 3 dimensions of the universe, countless starry sky masters had extremely strange expressions on their faces. This ancestor of the Een demon clan was so strange that they were completely speechless. As for the imperial crown prince, Long Xiang, he had already fled to a small fortress of the immortal army with his tail between his legs. He definitely wouldn't dare to show his face for a while. If that old monster were to take a fancy to him again, he would really die. Yi Xian didn't plan to torment that guy anymore. It was more important to get down to business first. As the 3 ladies of the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were dragged away by their respective elders, his expression completely darkened. He turned around and scanned the fleets in the surrounding void. When he saw that no one had taken the opportunity to escape when he was refining the 3 ladies' armor, his expression eased a little. Then he said in a muffled voice, "Very good. It seems that you all still trust this ancestor. In that case, the protection fee I mentioned earlier will be waived. However, this is after all my territory. If you want to search for treasures here, you should at least show some appreciation, right? This ancestor won't set any standards. All of you, prepare your own gifts and present them to me. As long as they are acceptable, this ancestor won't care too much. Otherwise, if anyone wants to treat this ancestor like a beggar and treat me like one, the consequences will be, humph, humph. You'll have to think about it yourselves." At this, the experts in the surrounding void heaved a sigh of relief. Then they looked gratefully at the 3 bastions of the Shenyuan family, the Duanmu family, and Bodhi biogenetics. Their eyes were full of gratitude. This old monster was obviously disgusted by the 3 girls just now, which affected his mood. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so easy to talk to. Since Yi Xian had lowered his standards, or perhaps it could be said that he didn't set any standards at all, the leaders in the surrounding void were all excited. This old monster was temperamental. On one hand, he was doing extremely shameless things. On the other hand, he could shamelessly say that he would win people over by virtue. It was rare that he had loosened up, so they had to take advantage of this opportunity to get this matter done quickly. Otherwise, who knew when he would suddenly change his mind? At that time it would be troublesome. Although it was somewhat uncomfortable to hand over some resources and treasures for no reason, who asked the primordial treasure, the Silk of Desire, to appear in this dark turtle sea? At present, this starfield was almost completely under the control of old monster Huan Tan. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, they had no choice but to pay to avoid disaster. After all, the Silk of Desire was not an ordinary primordial treasure. Not only was it impervious to water and fire, the beautiful women embroidered on both sides of it were also ancient existences whose spiritual sense had been absorbed by the treasure. It was one of the 9 great evil treasures of the primordial era. It was said that after refining this treasure, there would be a chance to reforge the soul of the primordial demon, who was sealed inside the silk until only a trace of spiritual sense was left, and reappear in the human world as a slave or servant, at the disposal of the master. None of the major powers were unmoved by such a precious treasure. The scale of the fleets of the major powers that had entered the Dark Turtle Sea was so large that it far exceeded the scale of young Master Ling Hu's sudden appearance in the heavenly battle starfield. Therefore, for this treasure, it was acceptable for the major powers to pay some dispensable treasures and resources. As long as they didn't act like the Qianquan elder of the battle lion race, they would be fine. With this thought in mind, almost all the major powers of the three universes in the surrounding void began to move. Holding the idea of paying to avoid disaster, they all prepared some treasures and resources, put them in a small space box, and sent people to deliver them to the corner of the void occupied by the Yin demon race. For Yin Qi, Yin Ba, and Yin Jiao, they had never been so glorious in their lives. Almost all the major powers of the three universes had arrived. They were holding space boxes filled with all kinds of treasures and resources, waiting in line for the three of them to register. Chapter 34-39. Exposed, at least 60%. A light flashed in Jianghu's eyes as he sneered. Previously, this old man felt that this matter was a little strange. That Ling Huchong was clearly moved to the second universe, but the two of us couldn't find any trace of him. However, this Yin demon clan suddenly appeared at this time, and a desolate ancient ancestor's behavior is quite similar to Ling Huchong's. Yes, this old man has been suspicious about this for a long time. On the side, the eyebrowless old man also sneered, his eyes sweeping in the direction of Yi Xian from time to time, especially the three women of the Xianyuan family. If this old man remembers correctly, the three women of the Xianyuan family were specially taken care of by Ling Huchong in the Medicine King's giant cauldron in the Heaven Battle Starfield. Ha ha ha! Hearing the eyebrowless old man mention this matter, Jianghu grinned again. Speaking of which, this is a pleasant surprise. Before this old man had never suspected these three girls, but this time is different. Everything in the world can't be so coincidental. These three women have been strangely ambiguous with Ling Huchong many times. This matter is thought-provoking. Perhaps they really know some secrets about this boy, such as his true origin. However, this matter is not urgent. The three women of the Xianyuan family are there anyway, and we can make a move at any time. Everything should wait until we join forces to capture this Ling Huchong. Yes. The eyebrowless old man nodded, but suddenly frowned and said worriedly, however, it would be fine if it was elsewhere, but now that we are in the Dark Turtle Sea, I don't know how that Ling Huchong did it, but he actually swindled the immemorial Dark Turtle life armor from the Dark Turtle old ancestor. Now that this entire starfield is under his control, the two of us have no chance or possibility to make a move. This matter is really a headache. It doesn't matter. Jianghu waved his hand and said with certainty, don't be fooled by this boy's words. Since he came to the Dark Turtle Sea, his purpose must be the desolate ancient treasure, Yen Luo. Moreover, according to this old man's speculation, the Yin demon clan was most likely fooled by him. This boy definitely has nothing to do with the Netherworld young master. It's not like we haven't seen his means before, so he must have obtained the Netherworld clan's bloodline divine ability from somewhere. If that's the case, his value will be even greater. This is a good thing for both of us. This time, he's in the Nether Turtle Sea, and if nothing unexpected happens, then the primordial treasure Misty Net will probably fall into the hands of that bastard. But for the two of us, this is good news. This boy thinks that no one knows his true identity. Moreover, his current identity as the Netherworld young master has offended too many forces. At the very least, the Battle Lion clan, which is ranked third among the various clans in the second universe, will absolutely not let him go. They will definitely wait for him outside the Dark Turtle Sea. So after obtaining the Yen Luo, this boy will definitely abandon his identity as the Netherworld young master. At that time, there might be chaos, and he wants to take advantage of the chaos to escape the Dark Turtle Starfield with another identity. You mean to say, the eyebrowless ancestor continued and probed, we'll secretly help him safely escape the Dark Turtle Starfield, and then we'll make a move outside the Dark Turtle Starfield and capture him. Exactly. Jianghu nodded and laughed fiercely. Once he leaves the Dark Turtle Starfield, the life armor in his possession is useless. Although this boy has other treasures in his possession, such as the Medicine King's ancient cauldron, he was in the dark before this, so he was prepared. But it's different this time. I'm in the dark while he's in the light. At that time, we'll suddenly make a move, and this boy might not have the time to withdraw other treasures when he's caught off guard. So, we'll definitely be able to capture him. So not only do we have to help him successfully escape the Dark Turtle Starfield after this, we'll secretly follow him and wait for an opportunity to make a move. Moreover, we even have to try our best to cooperate with him and seize the Yen Luo. After all, every time this kid obtains a precious treasure, our gains will be even greater after it falls into our hands. Ha ha ha. As they finished speaking, the two old fellows looked at each other and laughed. They were extremely certain that Yi Xian was a bird in a cage, and they firmly believed that it would be impossible for him to escape. Ancestor, all the protection fees are here. Please take a look at the list. After some trouble, all the small spatial boxes sent over by the various forces in the surroundings had been recorded. Moreover, Bar and the others even made a list and passed it to Yi Xian. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian placed all the small spatial boxes into the undying world within his body. At the same time, his divine sense invaded all the small spatial boxes to check the treasures and resources contained within them. If there were treasures whose quantity and quality were truly unacceptable, then he naturally wouldn't let them go. He would definitely take the lead and punish them properly. However, these fellows were rather conscientious. After Yi Xian checked all the small spatial boxes, even though the treasures and resources contained within them varied in quantity, they were basically passable. Since it was like that, then there was no need to continue entangling himself with these fellows. In Yi Xian's opinion, the most important matter in the Dark Turtle Starfield now was to obtain the primordial precious treasure, the Yen Luo, that was about to appear. Previously, he didn't know the use of the ancient tortoise shell in his hand, so he had no choice but to wait for the precious treasure to appear before making a move to fight for it. However, it was different now. Since the ancient tortoise shell was the life armor of the primordial nether tortoise, and after the latter's main body collapsed at the beginning of the primordial era, it actually left behind a strand of obsession to protect the Dark Turtle Starfield and become the Starfield consciousness of the Dark Turtle Starfield. Then, through the projection of the primordial nether tortoise's will, Yi Xian might be able to find out the location of the primordial precious treasure, the Yen Luo, in advance. Even if it was just a rough location and region, it was of great significance. At present, the other matters had basically come to an end. Even the Battle Lion clan, although they had suffered such a huge loss and would definitely not let this matter rest, they would at most wait outside the Dark Turtle Starfield and absolutely wouldn't dare to rashly enter this place to cause trouble. Yi Xian could completely calm down and explore the location of the primordial precious treasure, the Yen Luo, and then secretly rush over and make preparations in advance. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate and immediately took out the ancient tortoise shell that he had kept in the undying world in his body. In the next moment, just as Yi Xian was about to inject a strand of vitality into it to summon the projection of the primordial nether tortoise's will and secretly inquire about the location of the Yen Luo, a strange change suddenly occurred at this moment. Boom! A loud explosion suddenly rang out from an extremely distant star field in the northern region of the Nether Turtle Sea. Immediately after, a pale pink pillar of light soared into the sky, illuminating more than half of the Dark Turtle Starfield. With the appearance of this pink pillar of light, the soft laughter of several women could be heard clearly. Hee hee. Chapter 3440. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Rising into the sky, Yuyan silk. As the pink beam of light soared into the sky, a woman's giggle could be heard. The masters of the universe from the 3 planes of the universe were stunned. Then they cried out in surprise. Treasure light is rising into the sky. This is the sign of the birth of a great treasure. Yuyan silk, it must be Yuyan silk. It's absolutely right. It is said that there are some beautiful women embroidered on both sides of the silk. They are all existences at the level of Desolation era whose spiritual sense has been absorbed. After refining this treasure, there will be a chance to mold the souls of the Desolation era demons sealed in the silk, leaving only a trace of spiritual sense. Then, they will reappear in the world and be ready to be ordered. Now that the women are laughing, it must be related to the female cultivators sealed in this treasure. Oh my God! Could it be that those beautiful female cultivators sealed in this treasure have been awakened with the birth of this treasure? If so, who can take this treasure? They are existences from the Desolation era. Even if only a trace of spiritual sense is sealed in this treasure, it will be difficult to suppress them. Things are getting serious. No matter what, I have to get this treasure first. Those beautiful female cultivators all have a trace of their spiritual sense sealed in this treasure, so they can't leave. Even if I can't refine it, as long as I get this treasure, I'll still have a chance in the future. Rumble! Boom! Along with these exclamations, the large and small battleships in the fleet all moved. With a rumbling sound, they rushed in the direction of the pink light column. In addition, Jianghu, the ancestor without eyebrows, Long Ziwen, and other powerful figures of the universe also jumped up and crossed the void with their physical bodies. Their speed was not slower than those small fortresses with a diameter of 50,000 meters, or even faster. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared in the gray void ahead. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the battleships in the surrounding void had left. Those that were still in sight were some planet-level battleships with a length of 1,000 meters, or some stellar-level battleships with a length of 3,000 meters. Apart from that, there was the camp formed by more than 10,000 members of the Yin Demon clan. Because of the 9-dragon Cyan Phoenix carriage, and because Yin Qi and the other two thought that Ancestor Huan liked to show off, the Yin Demon clan did not bring any battleships with them. This huge group of people had traveled all the way from the Dark Nest star field. Although their momentum was indeed extraordinary and extremely eye-catching, at this moment, the drawbacks were also showing. They were lagging behind the other major forces. After all, most of the Yin demons were weaker than the Black Hole realm. At this moment, they were all gathered around the 9 Dragons Azure Phoenix carriage. How fast could they be? Get on the ship! Get on the ship! Get on the ship now! Yi Xian waved his hand and summoned the Black Lion Star Fortress that he had extorted from the Warrior Lion clan and Chenkuan clan not long ago. At the same time, he jumped and roared. With another wave of his hand, the 9 Dragon Cyan Phoenix carriage was stored in his undying world. Actually, he could have traversed the void by himself. However, on one hand, it was because he couldn't use the void shuttle. With Yi Xian's cultivation, which was only at the 5th level of the Heavenly Passage realm, the speed at which his physical body traversed the void was far inferior to that of the Starry Sky Fortress. On the other hand, the Yin Demon clan members were still very useful. After obtaining the Yen Luo, Yi Xian still had to rely on them to attract attention. Then, he could take the opportunity to change his identity and slip away. Therefore, no matter how burdensome the Yin Demon clan members were, Yi Xian had to bring them along. Soon, the 10,000 or so Yin Demon clansmen entered the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress under the lead of Yin Qi and the other 2 elders. They immediately rushed to their respective posts in the fortress. Soon, the Black Lion Star Fortress started a space jump under the control of the Yin Demon clan members according to Yi Xian's command. Its target was the pink light pillar that shot into the sky. Rumble. After a short while, the Black Lion Star Fortress arrived first. After a space jump, it traversed thousands of miles and arrived at the area where the pink light pillar shot into the sky. In the surrounding void, only a few star fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters could be seen from afar. They were stationed in different positions and surrounded the pink light pillar. They maintained a distance of about 10,000 miles. In addition, Jianghu, Ancestor Wu Mei, and the other universe realm experts could be seen clearly as they stood in the void. As for those small fortresses and large fortresses, they were on their way here and soon arrived as well. The fleets of more than 100 top-class forces from the 3 universes surrounded the entire void space. They kept a safe distance of about 10,000 miles, surrounding the pink light pillar that was soaring into the sky. The reason why all the forces didn't start fighting immediately upon arrival was because they were afraid of each other and restricted each other. On the other hand, the scene in the pink light pillar was too weird. The diameter of the light pillar was about 100 miles. Its height was impossible to estimate. In short, it shot into the sky and pierced a huge hole in the horizon. And in the central region of this incomparably thick pink light pillar, a pink silk spread open, and on it, a gorgeous figure appeared, singing and dancing. It was a woman. She was extremely beautiful. Her skin was as white as jade. She was wearing a fiery armor, but a large part of her snow-white skin was exposed. Her heroic spirit was impressive, but at the same time, she gave off a gorgeous aura. What was even weirder was that while the woman was singing and dancing, there was a canopy of flames around her body. It was black with a hint of red. It was clearly corpse fire. Seeing this, the faces of the universe realm experts around the void were gloomy. Some of them even cried out in alarm. Gorgeous corpse drought demon? This is one of the 4 ancestors of corpse doctrine in the remote antiquity era. I didn't expect that a wisp of origin sense would be sealed in this treasure. What's worse is that the corpse ancestor drought demon has clearly awakened. It seems that it will be born together with the Yen Luo. How can it be broken? Hearing this, the surrounding void was suddenly filled with exclamations. Many experts were shocked, including Yi Xian. No one expected that such a great expert from the remote antiquity era would be sealed in this treasure. Drought Demon was tormented, and it was burning. Yi Xian had some understanding of zombies before. There were basically 5 types of zombies. The first type was white zombies. After the corpse entered the corpse cultivation ground, it began to grow white hair all over its body. The second type was black zombies. If the white zombies were full of blood essence, they would shed their white hair in the future and be replaced by black hair that was a few inches long, as hard as steel nails. The third type was jumping corpse. The black zombies would absorb blood for a period of time and shed their black hair. They would mainly move by jumping, and their jumping steps would be faster and farther. The fourth type was flying zombies. They evolved from jumping corpse to absorb moonlight. Flying zombies were usually zombies that were more than 1,000 years old. They were agile and could jump up trees and houses as if they were flying. They could absorb soul essence without leaving any external wounds. Chapter 3441. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Colorful corpse Hitorigami zombies were different from zombies in the universe. They were more dangerous and were regarded as the most evil creatures. They were not tolerated by the various races in the universe. Among the 5 forms of zombies, white zombies and black zombies were generally dormant in the corpse nurturing ground. Because they did not cause chaos in the world, they could temporarily linger on. However, once they reached the third form of the jumping corpse, the growth of zombies required more blood essence. They had no choice but to leave the corpse nurturing ground and begin to cause chaos in the world. Zombies at this stage would basically be slaughtered. There were very few zombies that could grow into the fourth form of the flying corpse. This was because every flying corpse required at least thousands of years of blood essence to nurture. Third form jumping corpses were usually killed before they could grow to this extent. Since ancient times, there were almost no zombie cultivators that could grow into the zombie demon, which was the Hitorigami realm. There was only one in the desolate antiquity era. Because of its uniqueness, the original name of this female zombie had long been forgotten. No one mentioned it again. Instead, it was called the Hitorigami, the 5th form of the zombie. Since it was a zombie demon, its power was naturally extraordinary. Even if it did not reach the level of the supreme desolate antiquity like the golden divine dragon and the void giant turtle, it should be the strongest under the supreme desolate antiquity. It should belong to the same level of existence as the void ladle. However, it was only a wisp of Hitorigami's spiritual sense that was sealed in this treasure. Its original body might have long been destroyed in the distant desolate antiquity era. Although this wisp of Hitorigami's spiritual sense was not too terrifying, it had the cultivation of the 15th realm of the universe realm. A wisp of spiritual sense was already a mighty figure of the universe realm. It was enough to show how powerful the Hitorigami zombie demon in the desolate antiquity era was. However, all of this had nothing to do with the powerhouses of the major forces who were guarding the surrounding void. Now, it was just Hitorigami's spiritual sense that gave them a headache. There must be more than one wisp of the spiritual senses of the beautiful cultivators of the remote antiquity sealed in the Yanluo. The others were still in deep sleep. But now, the corpse ancestor Hanba had awakened. He had the cultivation of the 15th realm of the universe. Thus, it brought endless obstacles and variables to refine this treasure net. Not to mention refining Bao Luo. From the looks of it, just collecting Bao Luo would be extremely difficult. In the pink light beam, the internal field of the Yanluo had been activated because of the awakening of the corpse ancestor Hanba's wisp of spiritual sense. Presently, the misty net was over 300 meters wide, and it was like an enormous pink carpet that undulated with ripples. On this carpet, the corpse ancestor and Hitorigami were singing and dancing. This scene was so strange that it left everyone speechless. In this state, who would dare enter the pink pillar of light and obtain the treasure? In that case, he would definitely be attacked by the corpse ancestor, Hitorigami, without a doubt. Therefore, after the initial shock and exclamations, the countless experts in the starry sky soon fell into a dead silence. Even Long Ziwen, Zhan Tu, Ancestor Wu Mei, and nearly 10 other powerful figures of the universe were frowning. They fell into deep thought. Obviously, they were thinking of countermeasures to break this zombie. Yi Xian also fell into deep thought. Facing a body of primordial spirit sense of the universe realm, he also had a headache. He couldn't use force to suppress it. Perhaps, the will projection of the primordial dark tortoise can help. After thinking hard for a while, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly flashed. He then waved his hand and took out the ancient tortoise shell that he kept in his undying world. The will projection of the primordial dark tortoise controlled the entire dark tortoise star field. Although the corpse ancestor and Hidorigami were powerful figures of the universe, under the control of the will of the primordial dark tortoise, they were destined to be suppressed. At this time, as Yi Xian took out the ancient tortoise shell from his undying world, the experts of the major forces in the surrounding void all gathered their gazes with vigilance. Obviously, these people understood the terror of the primordial dark tortoise's will projection. If Yi Xian wanted to make a move, they wouldn't have the slightest chance. The Yen Luo would definitely be taken away by Yi Xian, and they wouldn't even have the chance to stop him or snatch it. Otherwise, they would be crushed by the will projection of the primordial dark tortoise controlled by Yi Xian. Zhan Tu and Ancestor Wu Mei exchanged glances across the void. This was exactly what they wanted to see. Once Yi Xian succeeded, they would secretly add fuel to the fire. No matter what, they had to create chaos so that Yi Xian could take the opportunity to change his identity and escape. The two of them would secretly follow behind and wait for an opportunity to capture him after he left the Dark Tortoise Sea star field. However, the other forces obviously wouldn't give up so easily. The voices of the leaders of some forces could be heard from some small fortresses. Young Master Netherworld, didn't you say that you wouldn't fight with us for the Yen Luo? You're the Emperor's son of the Netherworld Great Emperor, but you actually went back on your words. Relying on that piece of life armor in your hand, are you planning to eat all over the world? That's right. You change your words in the morning. Your table manners are too ugly. How despicable. To think that we've expressed our intentions before. Whether it's protection fees or deliberate extortion, young Master Netherworld, you've already benefited a lot. Even if you want to fight with us for the Yen Luo, at least you shouldn't use the power of the primordial dark tortoise's will projection, right? That's a little too shameless. Among them, even the imperial family's elder Long Ziwen couldn't help but warn Yi Xian with a dark face. Although the Dark Tortoise clan is strong, it's only one of the clans in the Second Universe's Federation. Although the Dark Tortoise Sea is vast, it's only a corner of the Second Universe. Young friend, you came from the primordial age, so you shouldn't be willing to cower in this corner of the Second Universe, right? Everyone present is from the top forces of the three universes. Don't go too far. Don't go too far. Don't go too far. Although these words were said tactfully, the warning and threat were extremely obvious. Yi Xian immediately sneered. He rolled his eyes and directly replied without any trace of politeness. F***ck your mother. Damn old man, how do I behave? When did I need you to tell me what to do? If you continue to complain, do you believe that I will immediately suppress you? You. Long Ziwen was so angry that his face turned red. He raised his hand and pointed at Yi Xian, but he didn't dare to be tough anymore. He finally understood that this guy was not only shameless, but also a troublemaker. He wouldn't listen to any good words. He was too rampant. Yi Xian coldly snorted when he saw that the other party had finally stopped talking. He didn't continue to speak ill of him. His right finger slightly moved, and he immediately channeled a strand of vital energy into the life armor in his hand. Rumble! In the next moment, thunder rumbled in the sky. The huge will projection of the primordial dark tortoise that had appeared once before appeared in the sky above the Dark Tortoise Sea without any suspense. Chapter 3442. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Damned Primordial Turtle. As Yi Xian took out the ancient tortoise shell again and injected a wisp of vitality into it, he summoned the will projection of the primordial nether tortoise and immediately extended his divine sense to communicate with it. Very quickly, a heavy voice that exuded a strong sense of vicissitude suddenly appeared in his mind. The birth of the net of smoke, the end of the mission, the dissipation of the nether turtle, the ancient times return to ruins. Rumble. Boom. Before Yi Xian could react, the huge projection of the ancient nether turtle's will that covered the entire nether turtle starfield suddenly trembled and began to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye. This scene was so unexpected that Yi Xian was dumbfounded on the spot. In the surrounding void space, the countless starry sky masters in the fleets of the top forces from the three universes looked up at the sky in horror. Then, they subconsciously turned to look at Yi Xian. At this moment, he was standing above the Black Lion starry sky fortress that he had extorted from the Battle Lion tribe. He held the ancient tortoise shell in his hand and raised it high above his head. His posture was extremely showy, but the expression on his face was sluggish. Yi Xian's entire body trembled as he recalled the words that had just sounded out in his mind. His entire body felt unwell. Obviously, the reason why the will projection of the primordial underworld tortoise had been dormant since the beginning of ancient times until now was to wait for the appearance of Yen Luo. Yet now, this treasure had officially emerged into the world, and the primeval nether turtle's mission had been completed, so it was about to disperse. Although Yi Xian did not know the meaning of this mission or who gave it to the will projection of the primordial abyss tortoise, there was one thing without a doubt. Once the truth was exposed, he would be in an extremely dangerous situation. Yi Xian was clearly aware of how ferocious and shameless he was before this. Presently, he was absolutely surrounded by enemies in the Nether Turtle Sea, and everyone wished for nothing more than to crush him. A mistake. It's definitely a mistake. Thinking of this, Yi Xian shuddered again. Facing the suspicious gazes cast at him from all directions, he hurriedly covered it up. It must be the wrong way to open it. This ancestor was a little impatient. I'll try again later. Let the old bastard rest first. Gotcha! Before Yi Xian could finish speaking, he raised his right hand high above his head. Suddenly, the sound of something shattering came from the palm of his right hand. At this moment, Yi Xian's body stiffened. His face turned green as he mechanically turned his head to look. Soon after, his entire face drooped. It was so black that it could compete with the bottom of the pot. Broken. The ancient tortoiseshell. Although, it was the turtle tortoiseshell tortoisesich, turtle was Lucas of Amon. However, from another perspective, this armor was of great significance to the current Yi Xian. It was like a protective talisman. Even if the projection of the primordial nether turtle's will in the sky dissipated, as long as the life armor was still in his hand, then the experts from the various top forces who were eyeing him covetously in the void would not dare to do anything extreme to him out of fear. Even though the previous scene of the nether turtle's will projection dissipating had indeed aroused their suspicions, these fellows did not dare to rashly probe. After all, if his guess was wrong, Yi Xian would be very likely to find a few unlucky people and punish them as an example to others. Yi Xian was also well aware of this. That was why when the projection of the abyss tortoise's will in the sky above his head dissipated, he didn't panic and even tried to cover it up with words. But now, as the life armor of the abyss tortoise between his fingers was broken, everything was different. If it was broken in private, it would be fine. But now, he was in the limelight, and the life armor was held in his right hand and held high above his head. Even a green-eyed person would have seen the scene of the life armor shattering clearly. Now that the life armor was gone, how could he summon the projection of the abyss tortoise's will? This was clearly a sign that something big was going to happen. If nothing unexpected happened, then with the disappearance of Yi Xian's protective talisman, the experts from the various powers that were eyeing them covetously in the air would definitely avenge their grievances and take revenge on their enemies. Yin Qi and the others in the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress understood all of this. At this moment, this group of old bastards were all dumbfounded. In the surrounding void, the experts from the various top forces from the 3 dimensions of the universe were initially stunned, then shocked and then ecstatic. Some of them even began to laugh hideously. This kind of accident was so shocking that no one had expected it. But when they realized what had happened, their thoughts immediately changed because of this. They were afraid that the Yen Luo would not be able to be collected for the time being. With so many experts around, they were not afraid that it would fly away. They could only wait and see. On the other hand, Ancestor Huan Ting of the Yin Demon Clan could take advantage of this opportunity to take revenge. After all, they had nothing to do. Even Zhan Tu and the eyeless ancestor were frowning at this moment. Their eyes flashed with hesitation as they considered whether they should change their previous plan and immediately take action to suppress Yi Xian and take him away first. After all, although the Yen Luo was a primordial treasure, it was an extraordinary primordial treasure. This could be seen from the fact that the primordial corpse ancestor, Hanba, had awakened along with it and seemed to want to come into being together with it. Just the spiritual sense origin of the remote antiquity alluring cultivator sealed in it was already in existence at the 15th realm of the universe, let alone the other remote antiquity alluring cultivators sealed in it. Once this treasure was refined, it was tantamount to fully controlling several remote antiquity alluring cultivators. This was definitely a supreme treasure. After refining it, the remote antiquity alluring cultivators would be fully awakened. When that time came, several remote antiquity alluring cultivators could crush the enemy at the same time. Was there anything more satisfying than this? In addition, It was said that the one sealed inside was a beautiful cultivator from the desolate era. For a male cultivator, this was not only a weapon for attack, but also a treasure for sex. In private, when no one was around, they could use this treasure to summon the sealed beautiful cultivator to serve them. What kind of enjoyment would that be? Even Jianghu, ancestor Wu Mei, and other remote antiquity alluring cultivators could not ignore this treasure. They all coveted it. Because of this, even though young Master Linghu represented a great fortune, the three absolutes of medicine, tool, and formation, in addition to the mechanical battle bug technology, and the primordial treasure, the Medicine King Cauldron. After hesitating for a while, Jianghu and the eyebrowless ancestor finally gave up on the idea of immediately attacking. Although young Master Linghu was important, they did not want to give up on the Yanluo. They wanted to have it all. At this time, Yixian finally could not bear the increasingly hostile gazes around him. After secretly gritting his teeth, he made up his mind and immediately shouted with a sullen face. What? Is this the start of a rebellion? Chapter 34-43. The arrival of old enemies. Come on. Try standing out and I'll crush all of you on the spot. When facing the experts of the three universes that were glaring covetously at him and revealed hostile expressions, Yixian braced himself and shouted, and he seemed to be fearless on the surface. So what if the lousy tortoiseshell is shattered? Don't forget where we are. Don't forget who gave that lousy tortoiseshell to this ancestor. Humph, humph. If you have the ability, then send a few almighty figures. In any case, this ancestor's sworn brother, the Nether Turtle ancestor, is a supreme almighty figure that has surpassed the universe realm. Do you dare bully this ancestor in his territory? All of you can give it a try. When they heard this, the experts of the various powers in the surroundings were instantly stunned, and they revealed hesitant expressions once more. They'd almost forgotten this. Besides the will projection of the primeval Nether Turtle, the entire Nether Turtle clan stood behind this damnable Nether Turtle young master, and any random elder from this clan was already in existence at the advanced stage of the 15th Great Realm, the Universe Realm. The Patriarch's cultivation had even surpassed the Universe Realm, so the turtle ancestor of the clan was obviously even more formidable. The turtle ancestor had once invited the young master of the Netherworld and even gave him his ancient tortoiseshell, so how could their relationship be ordinary? This was still the Nether Turtle stellar region, and with the Nether Turtle clan here, this shameful young master of the Netherworld was still in existence that could do as he pleased, and no one dared to offend him. When they realized this, even though the experts of the various powers in the surroundings were greatly disappointed, at least this damnable fellow was unable to utilize the will of the Nether Turtle to fight for the primordial treasure, the mist net of desire, with them. This matter could be considered as a form of consolation. When they thought like this, the experts of the various powers instantly grunted coldly, and they unwillingly withdrew their thoughts of causing trouble for Yixian. All enmity could wait until they left the Nether Turtle Ocean because the young master of the Netherworld would be able to leave this place one day. Yixian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart and didn't dare continue making noise so as to avoid provoking a rash fellow to go head-on against him. At that time, he would be completely exposed. Then, he frowned and fell into deep thought again. The current situation was very unfavorable to him. Although the experts of the major forces in the surrounding void did not immediately launch an attack, for Yixian, the Desolation Silk Net was a must-have item. Now that he had lost the help of the will projection of the primordial turtle, it instantly became very difficult to complete this task. Yixian had offended all of them with his own strength. He was in existence at the level of a rat crossing the street. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for him to obtain the primordial treasure, Yanluo. Clang! Just as Yixian was frowning in deep thought, the melodious sound of a zither suddenly came from a certain direction in the distance, bringing with it a sharp and austere aura. Although the sound was not loud, it actually caused Yixian's heartstrings to tremble. His heart skipped a beat, and he immediately looked in the direction of the sound. At the same time, the experts of the major forces in the surrounding void, who were thousands of miles away, all turned their heads and looked in the direction of the sound of the zither. A slender and beautiful figure was stepping on the void, crossing over from the end of their line of sight. She wore a black dress and had snow-white hair. It was Zhao Lingyang. She was one of the 4 peerless prodigies of the human race. Her cultivation was at the 9th stage of the mystic light realm, the successor of the undying Dark Phoenix, the palace master of the parting Hatred Palace, and the owner of the primordial treasure, the Zither of Hatred. She was also the daughter of the palace master of the 6th Palace, Xianxia, and the woman who had almost become Yi Xian's wife. Of course, Yi Xian was forced to marry her, but this matter was announced to the world by Xianxia at that time. Therefore, in the eyes of the world, Zhao Lingyang had indeed almost become Yi Xian's wife, and the reason why she fell into the demonic dust was because of her love for Yi Xian that turned into hatred. It could be said that the depth of love and the intensity of hatred destined one's life. At this moment, Zhao Lingyang's face was covered by a black veil, but Yi Xian still recognized her at a glance. In fact, the experts of the major forces in the surrounding void did the same. Although they could not see her face, the black dress, snow-white hair, and the demonic zither on her shoulder were all Zhao Lingyang's trademark. No, she could no longer be called Zhao Lingyang anymore. She was now the demonic dust woman. And the sound that was filled with killing intent came from the beautiful and ancient jade zither on her shoulder. The demonic dust woman fell into the demonic dust and was unrestrained. Although she used the zither as her weapon, she did not have the gentle aura of a woman. Even the zither on her shoulder was majestic and majestic. The name of this zither was Hateful End. Its sound could manipulate people's hearts and control their emotions. It could create endless illusions on the spiritual level. In the cultivation camp, it was already a famous killing weapon. Its grade was a primordial treasure, and its origin was even more extraordinary. It was rumored that it originated from the primordial era. It was refined by a powerful creature from the primordial era using the 9 heavens spiritual jade and the silk of the heavenly demonic silkworm. Even the entire body of the zither was actually carved from a piece of fallen phoenix tree that came from the 9 netherworld prison. Of course, the phoenix that resided on this piece of fallen phoenix tree was not an ordinary phoenix, but the 9 netherworld prison's undying phoenix. Although the main material came from the 9 netherworld prison, its surface glowed with a gentle white light. Its sound could make people feel peaceful, and it had the mysterious power to control the souls of all living things. It was originally a mascot. Unfortunately, the person who refined this zither was bewitched by the heavenly demon in his heart and fell into the demonic path. He called himself the Zither Demon, and this was how the name Hateful End came about. With this zither, the demonic dust woman became famous in a single battle and became one of the 4 peerless geniuses of the human race. She once sat cross-legged in the void, took out the zither of Hateful End, and played it with her knees crossed. The dozens of starry sky masters around then encountered a nightmarish scene. They were all suppressed by the demonic sound of the zither in an instant. Some of them were not injured and soon woke up quietly, as if they had just walked around the 9 netherworld prison. Their whole body was weak, and their mind was injured. The rest of the people were in a terrible state. They were injured to varying degrees, and many of them were seriously injured. There were even a few people who died directly. Under the terrifying illusions of the demonic zither that were manifested in their souls, their divine souls were directly destroyed. This was definitely a powerful and unpredictable killing weapon. Now, the demonic dust woman came with the Hateful End. Her purpose was undoubtedly to fight for the primordial treasure, Yen Luo. After realizing this, the starry sky masters of the major forces in the void suddenly frowned, and their hearts sank. Yi Xian immediately felt his scalp tighten. Although he did not feel guilty about this woman, because Yi Xian was the real victim of everything that happened before. If he was not strong enough, he would have been humiliated at that time. However, this woman's fall into the demonic dust was ultimately related to him. Yi Xian felt a little guilty. This was the rhythm of an old enemy. It was also at this moment that an even more unexpected accident happened. Chapter 3444. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Deplorable Zither Kill, Ding. Congratulations to the host for discovering a system carrier. Host. Which? Void Level 1. System Evolution Level. Intermediate Mutation. Note. Deprive. Ding. Congratulations to the host for activating a system competitive mission. Mission requirement. Subdue Witch. Mission reward. Choose any item you want from the other party's system store. Punishment for mission failure. The system will be devoured and the host will be obliterated. Following the system notification in his mind, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment before his expression darkened. His eyes were filled with suspicion. It was not that he had never seen Zhao Lingyang before. If she had been a system carrier before, this system competitive mission that was automatically triggered when the 2 system carriers first encountered each other should have appeared long ago. In other words, The devouring system in Zhao Lingyang's body didn't exist before. She only obtained it after she fell into the demonic dust world and became the witch. This was also proven by the first sentence of the system notification, the last sentence of the system notification, deprive. This made Yi Xian feel a sense of crisis. Only now did he know that the devouring system could be stolen. The witch's devouring system in her body was stolen from someone else's body not long ago. As for the person whose internal system was seized by him, there was no doubt that he was already dead. Yi Xian had already encountered two system hosts before. They were Xiaoyaozi and Fairy Xianxia. But compared to the two of them, the witch in front of him was obviously more dangerous. First of all, not only was her system stolen from a bloody massacre, it was also an intermediate mutation, the same as Yi Xian's. Of course, although both systems had evolved to intermediate mutation, the direction of the mutation was definitely different. According to Yi Xian's guess, the direction of the devouring system in the witch's body should be system devouring. Yes, systems devouring each other. This was clearly explained by the system notification in Yi Xian's mind. If this system competitive mission failed, the system in Yi Xian's body would be devoured by the opponent's system. And as the host, Yi Xian, would be obliterated. As for the consequences of the other party's failure, it was the same as before. He would only have to pay the price of an item from the system's auxiliary exchange shop. In addition, Yi Xian's devouring system would imprint his source code. However, it would not be devoured, and the host would not be erased. This was clearly unfair. The reason for this situation could only be due to the mutated attribute of the other party's system. And because of this, the witch dust woman was destined to be terrifying. If Yi Xian fought against her, he could only win. Once he lost, he would die. Apart from that, Demon Dust Lady's cultivation had surpassed Xiaoyaozi and Fairy Xianxia. The latter was at the peak of the 9th level of the Mystic Light Realm, while Demon Dust Lady was at the 1st level of the Void Realm. Even though it was only a small difference of a level, it was a difference of an entire level. It could not be ignored. Yi Xian was only at the 5th level of the 10th level of the Void Realm. The Witch Dust Lady was almost 2 levels higher than him. Without using the Fallen Sky Bow, Rai Di Seal, and other powerful treasures, Yi Xian would face an unprecedented challenge. Don't forget that the other party also had the demonic zither of hatred. It was unpredictable, and its power could not be underestimated. At the same time, just as the system notification sounded in Yi Xian's head, the Witch Dust Lady, who was walking in the air, also heard the system notification in her head. The system's competitive missions were always relative, and not one-sided. However, in the two competitive missions that Yi Xian had experienced before, his true identity hadn't been leaked. Whether it was Xiaoyaozi or Fairy Xianxia, neither of them knew his true identity. Even Prince Xian, who wasn't considered his true identity, didn't know about it. This might be one of the mutated attributes of the system in Yi Xian's body that had evolved. Now, although the Witch Dust Lady had confirmed that Yi Xian was a system carrier, she still did not know his true identity. However, since he was a system carrier, one thing could be confirmed. Yi Xian was not some netherworld young master from the end of the primordial age. He was a master of the current era. Yi Xian quickly realized this. His expression changed, and he cursed inwardly. Unfortunately, before he could think of a way to hide this fact, the Witch Dust Lady had already spoken. From thousands of miles away, her gaze fell on Yi Xian. She frowned. So you're a master of the current era, and not from the primordial age. However, why do I feel like I've seen you before? Hearing this, Yi Xian shuddered. His face was full of shock. Were all women's noses so sensitive? This girl almost recognized him. Fortunately, she only felt like she had seen him before. Otherwise, if she shouted that he was Prince Xian, Yi Xian would probably go crazy. Immediately after, he realized that his reaction was a little too extreme. The change in his expression was too obvious. This was clearly the reaction after being penetrated. Cries of surprise rang out from all around. He even felt a few suspicious gazes from the Black Lion warship. They were from Xianxia and the other Yin demons. What did I hear? The Netherworld young master is actually a fake? How is this possible? Why is it impossible? Is there a need for the Witch Dust Lady to lie about this? She has no grudges with that guy. Moreover, with her identity, if she was not sure, why would she suddenly say something like this? Don't be hasty. After all, The witch dust lady is now a master of a palace. She is the founder of Lihan Palace. The founder of Lihan Palace. Yes, such a person naturally cherishes her reputation. It is impossible for her to speak nonsense. She has her own channels. And didn't you see the look on that guy's face? His reaction was too intense. It was clearly the feeling of being caught in the crossfire. This is really interesting. I don't know how those idiots of the Een Demon clan in the Black Lion Fortress feel. They are actually being called old bastards by an impostor who pretends to be their clan ancestor, and they are still shouting that they will enjoy immortal blessings forever. Ha ha ha, what a big joke. Bullshit. Bullshit. Witch, you have ulterior motives. You are clearly misleading the public with your lies. Before the mocking voices of the experts of the major forces could be heard, Yin Qi's flustered and exasperated roar came from the Black Lion warship not far from Yixian. He pointed his spear at the witch dust lady standing thousands of miles away, and reprimanded her in public. Humph! Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to reprimand this palace master? The witch dust lady's face was gloomy. Her eyes had been locked on Yixian's face, but now they had shifted to the pitch-black Black Lion warship. With a shake of her hand, she placed the simple jade zither on her shoulder in front of her chest. Holding it with one hand, she waved her arm and played it. Chapter 3445. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio. The Qi demon flag swings in the heavens, clang. The sound of the guqin was bleak, revealing an incomparably sharp demonic killing intent. As the sound of the guqin rang out, a gigantic blood-red heavenly saber roared out from the ancient jade guqin in the fiend dust woman's hand. It slashed down from the sky, heading straight for the Black Lion Star Fortress. The power of this guqin was very strong, and it had different attacking methods. Illusion kill and blood kill were two of the methods that the fiend dust woman had displayed. Previously, in the human clan's cultivation camp star area in the third universe, the fiend dust woman had used the guqin of hatred in the battle that had made her famous. She had displayed the power of illusion kill. A large number of starry sky experts in the surrounding void had their minds affected when they heard the sound of the guqin, and they began to hallucinate. This kind of hallucination was not a real illusion, but it had the power to kill. In the end, after that battle, some starry sky experts had died under the power of the guqin of hatred's illusion kill. They had lost their breath before they could walk out of the guqin's illusion. At this moment, there were a large number of top experts from the three universes in the surrounding void. Although the fiend dust woman looked down on the world and was unruly, she was not as arrogant as young Master Linghu, who looked down on all the heroes in the world. Naturally, she would not casually display the power of the guqin's illusion kill. That would be too stupid. The sound of the guqin would kill all the existences in the star area, so it would undoubtedly make too many enemies. Because of this, the power of the guqin of hatred she had displayed at this moment was called blood kill. Compared to illusory kill's indiscriminate area of effect attack, blood kill's ability to lock onto its target was much more precise. At this moment, this gigantic blood-red heavenly saber whistled through the air and headed straight for the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress, which was 100,000 meters in diameter. Even Yixian, who was standing in the void not far from the Black Lion, was not included in the attack range. The fiend dust woman's purpose this time was obviously to teach Yin Qi, who had spoken rudely to her, a lesson. Yixian naturally could not allow this to happen. His expression immediately darkened as he snorted coldly. He didn't have a good impression of Zhao Lingyang to begin with, and the moment she arrived, she immediately brought him quite a bit of trouble. Moreover, the two of them were now enemies that couldn't be resolved. Otherwise, if Yixian failed in this system competitive mission, he would have to pay the price of his life. His evolution path would be cut off, and the devouring system in his body would be taken away by the other party. Yixian could not accept all of this. On top of that, Yixian and Devil Dust Lady were given different punishments for failing the competitive quest. It was obviously unfair, so Yixian was quite resentful. At this moment, when he saw how arrogant the fiend dust woman was and how she attacked at the slightest disagreement with the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress with a single slash, he was infuriated. You dare to act all high and mighty while carrying a broken zither? You actually want to kill this ancestor's subordinates in front of this ancestor? Do you want to be suppressed? Swish! Swish! As the cold words came out of his mouth, Yixian waved his hand twice in succession. Two faint dark green lights shot out from his palms, and the wind seals expanded. In the blink of an eye, They turned into two dark green withered claws that were thousands of feet long. When the netherworld claws appeared, one rushed toward the blood-red heavenly saber while the other rushed toward the fiend dust woman's body. While blocking the opponent's attack, they also wanted to counterattack. Rumble! Clang! A deafening explosion resounded as the 10,000 zhong long blood-colored heavenly sabers collided with the dark green netherworld withered claws. A terrifying energy hurricane erupted, and a small part of the void became blurry. The devastating energy storm caused ripples to appear in the void of the universe. In the face of the other netherworld claw, the fiend dust woman was calm and fearless. She sneered and waved her hand again. A cloud of blood-red energy whizzed out from the body of the ancient zither, and once again, it caused a burst of energy explosion. In the surrounding void, the masters from the three realms of the universe were dumbfounded. This kind of power was too amazing. Whether it was the remote antiquity magical skill, the netherworld claw, or the remote antiquity treasure, the zither of hatred, they were far beyond what an ordinary master of the starry sky could possess. Although this battle was only a short collision, it was incomparably gorgeous and extravagant. Brilliant colors bloomed in the void, dazzling everyone's eyes. It was also at this moment that the experts of the various forces in the surrounding void thought that this battle would soon continue and become more and more intense. However, an unexpected change occurred. Rustle! The crisp sound of a hurricane suddenly came from a distant part of the universe's void in another direction. A blood-red flag made of animal skin suddenly appeared in the sky. It was thousands of feet long, but it emitted an endless murderous aura that shook the sky. Even the void faintly resonated with it, which attracted the attention of Jianghu, Wu Meizi, and the other powerful figures of the universe. Following behind this blood-red flag made of animal skin, a black-haired figure in a black robe strode over. His face was cold, and the lines on his face were as sharp as knives. He exuded a cold and resolute aura. Seeing this figure, someone immediately exclaimed. At the same time, he revealed the origin of this blood-red flag made of animal skin, which shocked everyone. This person was the fallen demon's son. He was one of the 4 peerless talents of the human race. He was at the 9th level of the mystic light realm, the successor of the primordial demon clan, the hall master of the fallen magic hall, and he owned the primordial treasure, the Qi demon flag. As for this powerful flag made of animal skin, it was the Qi demon flag, a primordial treasure. It was said that during the primordial era, there was a powerful primordial spirit named Qi Yu. He had the body of a human and the hooves of an ox. He had 4 eyes and 6 hands, a copper head, and an iron forehead. His ears were like halberds, and he had horns on his head. He used his horns to push people down, and even his voice could summon the wind and rain. This Qi Yu was violent and loved to fight. He had a strong killing intent, and he was called the primordial demon god. Some people called him the Qi demon. This Qi demon flag was related to him. It used Qi Yu's skin as the flag and his bones as the flagpole. It was refined by a powerful being from the primordial era. When the demon race was activated, red clouds of killing intent surged on the flag. If it could display its full power, it would have the power to sweep through the heavens and earth. This whole master wants this blood-red fog. All of you leave. As exclamations sounded from the surroundings, the fallen demon son's figure flickered. With a single step, he arrived in front of the black blood beasts. He raised his hand and grabbed the black flagpole. As he spoke, he waved his hand. Rumble! Roar! It looked like a casual wave of the flag, but a few ancient fiend celestial projections that were tens of thousands of feet tall were hurled out of the flag. They were all crimson-bodied and horned beasts, and they roared as they charged toward the pink pillar of light. This person's purpose was clear. As soon as he arrived, he went straight to the pink light pillar where the primordial treasure, Yuyan Luo, was located. He even said that he had taken a fancy to this treasure. He even scolded the countless experts in the surrounding void to leave quickly. He was so arrogant that he was even more arrogant than young Master Linghu, who had caused a sensation in the 3 realms of the universe not long ago. In the surrounding void, all the top forces from the 3 realms of the universe were instantly enraged. It was also at this moment that the familiar system notification sounded out once again in Yi Xian's mind, causing him to roll his eyes. Another one? Chapter 3446. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Claw of the Netherworld Broken String, Ding. Congratulations to the host for discovering a system carrier. Host, Fallen Demon's Son, Rank 1 Void Master. System Evolution Level. Intermediate Mutation. Ding! Congratulations to the host for activating the System Competition mission. Mission Requirement. Subdue the Fallen Demon Son. Mission Success Reward. Redeem a treasure from the system store of the other party. Punishment for mission failure. Redeem a treasure from the system store of the other party. With the arrival of the Fallen Demon Son, the familiar system prompt sounded in Xianxia's mind again. This time, his expression was slightly better, and he was not as gloomy as when he first met the demon dust woman. After all, although the devouring system in the fallen demon prince's body was also an intermediate mutation, the direction of its mutation was unknown. At the very least, it was not as ferocious as the witch dust ladies, who had forcibly snatched it from the bodies of other system carriers and had the deprivation attribute. Although the system competition mission between Xian and the fallen demon son had been activated, the punishment for failing the mission was very fair. However, the fallen demon son's expression completely changed at this moment. At the same time, the system prompt sounded in his mind. Moreover, there were two competitors at once. One was Xian, and the other was the demon dust woman. He looked at Xian from a distance of thousands of miles in the void, and there was a suspicious look in his eyes. Previously, in the territory of the cultivation camp in the third universe, the fallen demon son had fought with the devouring doppelganger. At this moment, Xian gave him a vaguely familiar feeling. But soon, his gaze moved away from Xian and swept toward the demon dust woman in the other direction. His expression was gloomy and solemn. When I first saw you, you were clearly not. I didn't expect such a thing to happen. This is really surprising. Speaking of this, the fallen demon son's eyes shone with a murderous intent. Obviously, like Xian, he was very unhappy with the demon dust woman's devouring attribute mutation system ability. Even if he failed the system competition mission, she would devour the system in his body, and then his existence would be erased. It was really annoying. These words were said without rhyme or reason, and the powerhouses of the various forces in the void were confused. Some of the old monsters seemed to have understood something, and all fell into silence. However, although the fallen demon son was arrogant when he had first arrived, he had summoned the demon flag and summoned a few demon god phantoms, demon god shadows, and translation of the demon god translation, demon air translation. Calms his realm. Was. What's more, Yen Luo was there, and it didn't look like it was going to escape immediately. The fallen demon son was not in a hurry, and even Xian was temporarily put aside by him. His most important target now was the demon dust woman. It was precisely because of this that the experts of the various great powers who were roaring furiously in the surrounding void suddenly stopped in their tracks, and they no longer pressed forward. They looked at the sudden change in the scene before them with slight astonishment. They were all puzzled as to why the fallen demon prince had suddenly turned to attack the witch dust maiden, and he had even disregarded the treasured artifact, lustful mist net. Clang! The two of you should join forces. I'll suppress you together. The demon dust woman's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She sat down cross-legged in the void and waved her right arm. The sound of the zither rang out, and two huge blood-red dragons rushed out of the zither. They opened their mouths and roared as they rushed toward Xian and the fallen demon son respectively. Roar! Roar! In the blink of an eye, the 4,000-meter-tall demon gods that rushed out from the Qi demon flag began to engage in a fierce battle with one of the blood-colored dragons. As for the other blood-colored dragon, it also traveled thousands of kilometers and approached in the blink of an eye. It raised its claw and pressed down towards Xian's head. You're really a toad yawning. Each of you is more arrogant than the other. How can this ancestor be suppressed by you two little kids? Xian sneered. His body swayed, and instead of retreating, he moved forward. With a wave of his hand, a dark green light shot out. It expanded with the wind and turned into a dark green claw that was thousands of feet long. With a slash, it cut off the tail of the blood-red dragon. A scarlet energy rain poured down, reflecting a small part of the void red. Roar! The blood-red dragon roared angrily. Although it was an energy body because of the zither, it was clearly endowed with some kind of demonic nature. It appeared to be extremely agile. After the dragon tail was cut off, its ferocious nature was completely aroused. With a roll of its body, it rushed toward Xian again. Xian had already used the netherworld claw more than once. It was basically a single slash and a single swipe, making it seem extremely simple. However, in reality, This kind of Netherworld clan bloodline ability was clearly not the case. The reason why the other changes did not appear before was because with its incomparably sharp aura, just a simple swipe and claw was enough to achieve its goal and solve the problem. Other more complicated divine ability changes were completely unnecessary. But this time, the 2,000 feet long blood dragons summoned by the demonic zither of hatred were clearly extraordinary. This could be seen from the fact that the other 1,000 feet long blood dragon was able to fight against 4 and directly block the 4,000 feet long demon god phantoms formed by the fallen demon child waving the Qi demon flag. Similarly, on Yi Xian's side, the Netherworld claw, which had always been victorious, only managed to cut off the dragon tail of the 10,000 feet long blood dragon in front of him. It did not completely destroy it. In this way, the more complicated changes after the Netherworld claw had a place to be used. Even if Yi Xian wanted to hide his strength, it was impossible, because with his current identity as the young master of the Netherworld, other than this divine ability, he could not use any other sharp techniques. Netherworld claw. Claw into the Netherworld. Yi Xian sneered, facing the ferocious blood dragon that was pouncing towards him. He was not afraid at all. In the next moment, the dark green claw that had just cut off the blood dragon's tail exploded with a loud bang. The raging dark green strange energy swirled in the void, expanding and retracting. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a dark green skull that was thousands of feet tall. In its huge eye sockets, dense evil flames leaped. In the blink of an eye, it was thousands of miles away, as if it had teleported at an extremely fast speed. Then, the dark green skull's sinister wide mouth suddenly opened, and actually swallowed the blood dragon that was about the same size as it in one gulp. The latter did not struggle at all, and in less than a breath, it had completely disappeared. Screech! After devouring the blood dragon, the dark green skull let out a tyrannical howl towards the sky. Its eyes that were filled with fiendish flames shot out a bloody light, and its baleful aura soared. Its body also expanded in the blink of an eye, reaching a size of 2,000 feet. This was clearly the effect of devouring the blood dragon and seizing its energy to increase its power. Shang! In the distant void, the demon dust maiden, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly raised her hand. A wisp of bright red burst out from between her fingers. It was actually cut by the zither strings on the first floor. Chapter 3447. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The red-eyed green rock, the demonic zither of hatred, had a total of 9 strings. Every single string was capable of conjuring a blood dragon. Furthermore, they were natal blood dragons. They were far more powerful than the regular blood dragons conjured from the demonic zither. This had already been proven before. The demon dust maiden had condensed 2 life-bound blood dragons from the 8th and 9th strings of the zither. Even the Netherclaw was unable to completely destroy one of them, while the other could take on 4 of them by itself. It blocked the 4 demons summoned by the demon Qi banner that were over 10,000 meters tall. But even so, when the second transformation of the Netherworld Claw appeared and the claw transformed into the Netherworld, the 9th dragon, whose dragon tail had been severed, still could not escape the fate of being devoured. The fall of the natal blood dragon and the breaking of the 9th string were only external wounds that cut the witch's finger. What was more serious was the recoil, which caused certain internal injuries to her. The demonic zither of hatred was damaged as well, requiring post-battle repair. In this battle, its power had been completely affected. After all, if the 9 strings of the demonic zither were to be completed, there would have been an ultimate move, which would have conjured all 9 natal blood dragons. However, at that moment, as the 9th string was broken, the natal blood dragon dissipated for the time being. The final move of the demonic zither of hatred had no chance of being used in that battle. Her expression turned ferocious as she looked at all of that. She glared at Yi Xian and said, "Damn you! I was careless, and you damaged the foundation of the demonic zither. You'll definitely die today." Clang, clang, clang. The witch waved her hands, ignoring the blood that seeped between her fingers as she caressed the demonic zither of hatred on her knees. Bloody mist rose. Clang. 3 tunes from the demonic zither and 3 dragon roars were heard. 3 dragons that were over 10,000 feet long burst from the body of the demonic zither of hatred. The 3 dragons that appeared this time were even more bloody. They were conjured from the 5th, 6th, and 7th strings of the demonic zither. Of the 9 strings of hatred, the first was the most powerful, the 9th was the weakest, and so on. The 3 natal blood dragons that burst from the body of the demonic zither were all more powerful than the previous 2. This time, Because the zither strings were stained with the blood of the witch dust woman's fingertips, its power was further enhanced. Now, the three natal blood dragons rushed out at the same time. One of them faced the fallen demon prince, while the other two surrounded the dark green skull. The battle instantly escalated, stirring up this small part of the void. Two of the four peerless geniuses of the human race, as well as the mysterious netherworld young master whose identity was unknown. The three of them each used their own divine abilities as they fought endlessly. In the surrounding void space, the top powers from the three universes had been stunned for a long time. Everything in front of them was a little chaotic. The three sides were in chaos, and they didn't even know the reason for the fight. In short, these three fellows were like water and fire, as if they were enemies in their previous lives. On the surface, it looked like Witch Dust Maiden was fighting 1 versus 2, but in reality, that wasn't the case. This was because between Yi Xian and the fallen demon's son, he would clearly launch a sneak attack or two whenever there was an opening. This was definitely the rhythm of a three-way war. This left everyone stupefied. These were three exceptional youngsters, yet their violent tempers were just too shocking, right? They couldn't tolerate it when they met, and they had to fight to determine who was stronger. Other than that, what shocked them even more was the methods displayed by the three of them. Among the three of them, Witch Dust Maiden and the fallen demon prince were the strongest. They were at the first stage of the Void Realm, which was comparable to the elders of some races. The Netherworld young master, whose identity was difficult to determine, was even more abnormal. He was only at the 5th stage of the Grotto Heaven realm, but with the complicated changes of the Netherworld Claw divine ability, he was evenly matched with these two peerless geniuses of the human race. Chi Demon Flag Hall, Demon God Roar, Hateful Zitherjeng, Blood Dragon Ferocious. There was also the power of the Netherworld Claw's divine ability, and the dark green skull's murderous aura was monstrous. They were all primordial divine abilities and primordial treasures. The standard of this battle was so high that even some of the older generation experts couldn't help but look sideways. They secretly sighed that the era was indeed different. The new generation was replacing the old, and the era belonged to the new generation. They, the old generation, would probably all die on the beach in the near future. Roar! Roar! GGG! The blood dragon roared, the demon god roared, and the dark green netherworld skeleton laughed strangely. The energy bodies condensed from the internal domain of the three divine abilities and the treasures intertwined in this void. After a cup of tea's time, they were completely tangled together. The monstrous aura covered a small part of the void, blocking the figures of Yi Xian, the fallen demon prince, and Witch Dust Maiden. They couldn't be seen clearly. Outside the area of this battle, Jianghu and the eyebrowless ancestor's eyes shone with an invisible brilliance. They stared closely, afraid that young Master Linghu would take this opportunity to escape. As for the experts from the top forces of the three universes in the surrounding void, they had long been dazzled by this battle, and their expressions were infatuated. Gong Wuxin, Wu Chenzi, Chou Doufu, and Yu Xianlong, the four heroes of the human clan, looked gloomy. They were not convinced by the four peerless geniuses of the human clan before. As for the so-called two peerless geniuses of the human clan, they didn't even take them seriously. However, after the battle in the third universe's heavenly battle starfield, young Master Linghu, one of the two peerless geniuses of the human clan, suppressed all of them by himself. Even the other two peerless geniuses of the human clan, young Master Linghu, and Fairy Xianxia, were oppressed until they couldn't do anything. That battle could be said to have greatly damaged the confidence of the four heroes of the human clan. Today, when they saw that the other two peerless geniuses of the human clan, Witch Dust Maiden and Fallen Demon Prince, were stronger than young Master Linghu and Fairy Yinyao, and that another peerless geniuses of the Second Universe's Federation had appeared out of nowhere, comparable to the invincible war god and young Master Linghu. The depression in their hearts could no longer be described with words. Not only them, but even the young clan leaders and other peerless geniuses of the Second Universe's Federation had a deeper feeling. This was the Second Universe, but at this moment, the two peerless geniuses of the human clan and the young master of the Netherworld, whose identity was still unknown. Among the peerless geniuses of the 10 clans of the Second Universe, although there was a young master of the Battle Lion clan, Shi Baofeng, who was ranked 3rd, he didn't jump for long before he was beheaded and eaten. This was simply unbearable. Screech! At this moment, in the distant void, a sky-splitting screech suddenly sounded. It was soul-shaking, and the powerhouses of the major forces in the surrounding void all looked sideways and turned their heads to look. In their line of sight, A huge green rock with a wingspan of thousands of feet was crossing the void with its physical body, flapping its wings. Behind it, there was clearly a void fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. Even with full kinetic energy, it faintly couldn't keep up with its speed. The powerhouses of the second universe were stunned at first, but then their spirits were lifted, and they exclaimed in unison. Red-eyed Green Rock? It's actually him. It's the young master of the Green Rock clan, ranked second among the peerless geniuses of the second universe, Peng Jingxiao. Chapter 3448. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Jiao Beishan. The Green Rock race was ranked second among the top 10 races in the Second Universe Federation. They were even ranked third before the Battle Lion race. This showed how powerful this race was. The strength of the Green Rock race was not only reflected in the overall strength of the race, but also in the individual strength of the Green Rock race. This strength was reflected in the bloodline in their bodies and the special abilities in their bloodline. The Green Rock race was said to be the descendant of the ancient era's Azure Sky Rock. The ancestor of the ancient era's Azure Sky Rock was the legendary Kuan Pang. The Kuan Pang, like the Netherworld Emperor, was a supreme existence in the ancient era. It was comparable to the Golden Divine Dragon and the Void Giant Tortoise. However, it was not on the side of the headless infant corpse. It was on the side of the green eyes of the heavenly Tao. Of course, whether it was Yi Xian or the top powers of the three universes, none of them knew about this. After all, the battle of the primordial era had involved almost all the creatures of the primordial era, and all of them had to take sides. In that battle, there were hundreds of primordial sovereigns like the Golden Divine Dragon and the desolate ancient Xianxia. Yi Xian was unable to call out their names one by one, so it was understandable that he didn't know much about the Kuan Peng's camp. Perhaps there would be records of this in the clan's inherited secret scriptures, but it would clearly not be easily divulged to the outside world. It was a secret that would not be shown to others. Peng Jingxiao was the young leader of the Green Rock race, one of the three heroes of the Second Universe Federation. Among the three heroes, Lion Bofeng was ranked last. Other than Peng Jingxiao, who was ranked second, there was an even more amazing existence. Although he was also at the Void Realm rank 1, Peng Jingxiao was not a match for him. This was because his bloodline was too powerful. This person was called Jiao Batian. Jiao Batian was the young master of the Blood Wyrm race and the leader of the three heroes of the Second Universe Federation. He was also in the 12th Great Realm, Void Space rank 1, but he was said to be able to fight against the older generation experts of the 13th Great Realm, Genesis Realm. The Blood Wyrm race was the strongest race in the Federation of the Second Universe, the strongest race. It was said that this race was the descendant of the ancient era's nine-headed blood dragon, and the ancestor of the nine-headed blood dragon was the legendary Blood Sea Demon Dragon. The Blood Sea Devilworm was like the Rock and Netherworld Emperor. It was an exalted existence during the primordial era, and it could similarly compare to the Divine Gold Dragon and Void Tortoise. However, its faction was the same as the Kuan Pang bird. It was the enemy of the Headless Infant Corpse's faction. At this moment, Peng Jingxiao had revealed his bloodline true body. He had turned into a red-eyed green rock with a wingspan of 1,000 zhang. He flapped his wings and charged forward at an extreme speed. The green fortress behind him could barely keep up. Meanwhile, in another direction, a massive crimson cloud was surging toward them from a distance of countless kilometers in an instant. The blood cloud was boundless and vast, spanning thousands of miles. Within it, one could vaguely see 1,000 zhang-long one-horned blood jiao dragon swallowing the clouds and spitting out blood. Its aura was disdainful, and its speed was not any slower than Peng Jingxiao's. Behind the one-horned blood flood dragon, there was also a space fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. This space fortress was blood red, and a nine-headed blood flood dragon was engraved on its hull. This was the symbol of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the leader of the various races of the Second Universe. In the void, the experts of the top forces were stunned at first, and then they exclaimed again. Nine-headed blood dragon? The Blood Dragon race's universe master is here. He is the leader of the top 10 races in the Second Universe. It seems that the Desolate Era's treasure Yen Luo is really attractive. The top 3 races in the Second Universe didn't even participate in the turmoil in the Third Universe's heavenly battle starfield. They are not interested in young Master Linghu and his Medicine King's ancient cauldron. But this time, they came one after the other. The Battle Lion race has retreated, but the more powerful Green Rock race and Blood Dragon race have come at the same time. This void is going to be chaotic. There will be a good show to watch. The universe masters of the various races won't make a move easily. Although the Green Rock race and Blood Dragon race have living fossils that are beyond the universe realm, and their overall strength is stronger than the Dark Turtle race, this is the Dark Turtle Sea. The nest of the Dark Turtle race is where the Dark Turtle race is located. Even the universe masters of these two races can only guard it. It seems that the universe masters of the human race can't make a move. After all, this is the second universe. Besides the Dark Turtle race, the Green Rock race and Blood Dragon race also have universe masters of the human race. If they don't make a move, the human race's universe masters can only watch. Yes, this battle is destined to be a competition between the younger generation. Although the human race has two peerless geniuses, the Demon Dust Woman and the Fallen Demon Son, and even Xiao Zi and Fairy Xianxia may be lurking in the dark, among the younger generation of the various races in the second universe, Peng Jingxiao and Zhao Batian have also arrived. It's hard to predict who will win in the end. It's a pity that the two peerless geniuses of the human race, the invincible war god, are still in the cultivation camp. They are being chased by the Tenju Celestial Palace and can't get away. Young Master Linghu died early and was exiled to the Void Turbulence. Otherwise, if he was here today, the battle would be more exciting. Isn't it the same? Although young Master Linghu is gone, there's young Master Netherworld. He's just as monstrous and abnormal. Moreover, he's also a big foodie. Even Lion Boffing was roasted by him. His ferocity isn't inferior to young Master Linghu's at all. Yes, this person's identity is now questionable. He may not be the young master of the Netherworld race from the end of the Desolate Antiquity era. He is too mysterious and shocking. Screech! Roar! Just as the experts of the top forces in the void were exclaiming, from the left and right of the void, a roar of a rock and a roar of a dragon came at the same time. The Cyan Fortress behind Peng Jingxiao and the Scarlet Fortress behind Zhao Batian both stopped steadily thousands of miles away, occupying two different positions in the void. Like the camps of the other major forces, they formed an encirclement, firmly trapping the pink light pillar that was still soaring into the sky. However, the two red-eyed Cyan Rock and the ferocious Blood Dragon did not stop at all. They directly rushed into the encirclement where the battle was taking place. Previously, only the Demon Dust Woman, the Fallen Demon Son, and the Netherworld Young Master were fighting fiercely here. But now, it was obviously different. Two of the three heroes among the geniuses of the second universe had joined the battle. The five-sided battle royale basically determined the ownership of Yen Luo. Because the older generation of universe masters could no longer fight. The older generation experts of the other forces of the human race sighed and turned their heads to look at the younger generation behind them. They were also of the younger generation, but they were not qualified to participate in this battle. Chapter 3449. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Corp's flames fill the sky, screech. Roar! The roar of a rock and the roar of a flood dragon could be heard from both sides. Peng Jingxiao and Zhao Batian had made their moves at the same time. A large amount of green mist gushed out of the red-eyed Green Rock's body. The wind and clouds swirled and covered a corner of the void, sealing the entire battlefield. In the blink of an eye, the rules of the void seemed to be affected by something, which was beneficial to the red-eyed Green Rock. Peng Jingxiao's aura skyrocketed, while the power of the others was suppressed. At the same time, in another direction, the ferocious blood flood dragon, which was originally thousands of feet tall, punched out with its claws. Then, an energy blood flood dragon of the same size roared and appeared in front of Yi Xian in an instant. Roar! Roar! Although this energy blood flood dragon was the same size as Zhao Batian, it had 9 ferocious heads. Each of them spat out fire, water and smoke, which also covered a small part of the void, covering Yi Xian's entire body. These were 2 kinds of bloodline divine abilities. They were similar to the bloodline divine ability of the Battle Lion tribe, which originated from the Blood Slaughter Lion tribe. They belonged to the Green Rock tribe and the Blood Flood Dragon tribe. The innate divine ability of the Green Sky Rock tribe. Demonic Rock seals the heavens. The innate divine ability of the 9-headed Blood Flood Dragon tribe. Demonic Blood Flood Dragon Fist. As soon as Peng Jingxiao and Zhao Batian entered the battlefield, they immediately displayed their strongest bloodline divine ability and forcibly joined the battle. The chaotic battle between the 3 of them turned into a chaotic battle between 5 people in the blink of an eye. Young Master Netherworld, Lion Boffing is our 3rd brother. You dared to kill him and roast him. Today we will not let you live. Yes, one of the 3 heroes of the second universe has fallen. Today, this young master will use your netherworld blood as a sacrifice to comfort his soul. Roaring furiously, Peng Jingxiao and Jiao Batian simultaneously descended. Although their target was only Yi Xian, the latter had already engaged in a fierce battle with the fallen demon son and the witch dust woman. It was difficult to distinguish between them, and their attacks were unable to determine the target. In the end, the only result was a chaotic battle between the 5 of them. Humph! In the next instant, the fallen demon prince let out a muffled groan from his nose. He had been hit unintentionally. The energy dragon with 9 ferocious heads collided with the 2 demon gods. One of the heads was directly devoured by one of the dragon heads, causing the fallen demon prince to suffer a small backlash. Zang! Fresh blood splashed out from Devil Dust Woman's hand again, and the 8th weakest dragon was severed. The natal blood dragon was already barely able to hold off the 4 demon gods. Now the 9 blood Jiao dragons rushed in, and 3 of the Jiao dragons spat out mist at the natal blood dragon, causing it to crumble. You 2 are simply courting death. What does our battle have to do with you? The 3 elites of the Second Universe Federation? Wasn't one of them already killed? The remaining 2 will also perish here today. The fallen demon prince and devil dust woman were enraged, and they roared at the same time. They waved the demon flags in their hands, and the ancient zither rang, summoning several demon god phantoms and blood-red giant dragons, which roared towards Peng Jingxiao and Jiao Batian. Yi Xian didn't hold back, and he didn't care about the cost. He waved his hand again, and although there was no dark green withered claw this time, there was a dark green radiance that shot out from his palm and sank into the glabella of the 2,000 feet tall dark green skeleton. With this palm strike, Yi Xian's face instantly turned pale. The price he had to pay was not small. He had to pay half of the dark baleful energy of the netherworld physique, and the innate cold Een spirit he absorbed in the Een pond had been turned into pure energy, boosting the dark green skeleton's power. It was overflowing with ferocity, and its power skyrocketed. Huff! Under the strong wind, the originally 2,000 feet tall dark green skeleton expanded to 5,000 feet in the blink of an eye. It roared silently, and its blood burst out. It opened its mouth and devoured half of the 9-headed blood Jiao dragons. 4 of the Jiao dragons' heads were destroyed, and they turned into blood energy mist that was swallowed by the dark green skeleton. Xiao! Xiao xiao! At the same time, Peng Jingxiao also displayed his might. The red-eyed green Peng flapped its wings crazily, and the entire void that was shrouded by the green mist trembled slightly. Then, countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared in the void of the universe that was affected by the power of the demonic rock sky ceiling field. Like green goose feather snowflakes, they covered the sky and covered a part of the sky. This was one of the killing methods of the great green Peng's innate divine ability, the demonic Peng sealing the heavens field. Although the demonic Peng sealing the heavens field sounded like a sealing ability, how could the great green Peng's innate divine ability be so simple? Previously, Peng Jingtian had only displayed the basic form of this innate divine ability. He had covered a small part of the void with the unique field of this innate divine ability to strengthen his attacks and weaken his enemies. To put it bluntly, it was only a supplementary effect. And right now, the killing power of this innate divine ability was displayed. The green feathered arrows that blotted out the sky and covered the earth like a snowstorm instantly moved, whistling unceasingly. Except for the targets that Peng Jingtian had specifically instructed not to be targeted, all other existences within this sealed world would be targeted. This included the light pillar that was not far away from where the 5 of them were fighting. Thousands upon thousands of green Peng feathers shot into the pink light pillar. Because they were in the form of energy, they immediately collided with the pink light pillar, causing some kind of magnetic field to become chaotic. The pink light pillar that was originally like a lamppost that pierced the sky suddenly rippled. Inside the light pillar, the pink silk cloth that was 1,000 feet wide began to undulate even more violently. This directly affected Hidorigami Corp's progenitor, who was undulating on the silk cloth with her bare feet. Her dance was no longer as graceful as before. At the same time, Hidorigami Corp's ancestor was finally awakened from her intoxicated state of dancing. She extended her attention out of the pink light pillar and took in everything that was happening outside. Screech! Hidorigami Corp's ancestor was enchanting and cold. At this moment, her eyes were bursting with bloody anger. While roaring to the sky, She shook her right arm and a 30-feet-long bloodbone spear appeared in her hand. The spear tip was steaming with black flames. That was the innate corpse flame. There were also many ferocious primordial evil spirits phantoms appearing and disappearing. These were all powerful creatures that were slain by Hidorigami corpse ancestor in the remote antiquity era. At the same time, boundless black and red corpse flames seethed from the fiery red armor worn by corpse ancestor Hanba. It instantly suffused an area of 50 kilometers in the surroundings, and it transformed the space in an area of 50 kilometers into an ocean of corpse flames. In the sky above the sea area, countless powerful primordial evil spirits roared, soared into the sky, and then collapsed. They set off Hidorigami corpse ancestor, who was holding a bloody spear and standing barefoot above the sea of flames. Her corpse flame was even more monstrous. Rumble. At this moment, the pink light pillar that was hundreds of miles in diameter and had an unfathomable height completely collapsed. The pink silk that was hundreds of feet wide turned into a wisp of bloody light and shot into the space between Hidorigami corpse ancestor's eyebrows. She took a step forward and appeared at the place where Yi Xian and the others were fighting. Her blood-bone spear shook the sky. Chapter 3450. Peerless Beauty, the Greater Demon, the Rock? The Blood Sea Devil Flood Dragon? No, it merely possesses a very faint bloodline. The Zither of Hatred? The Crimson Devil Banner? I've actually seen it again. But why is it in the hands of such an ant? There's actually a primeval netherworld with a pure bloodline? This is absolutely impossible. The Netherworld Emperor has fallen a long time ago, and the Netherworld's bloodline has been completely severed at the end of the primordial era. I'm Corpse Ancestor. I'm Hanba. Hoqing, Jiangchen. Where are those fellows? Wait. Why are so many memories missing? Where is this? Even the aura of time is different. What exactly happened? Hey. As soon as Corpse Ancestor Hanba was born, she immediately awoke from her intoxicated state and summoned the bloodbone spear, destroyed the pink pillar of light, and took a step forward to descend into the world. Her eyes were filled with dense bewilderment at the first possible moment, and her peerlessly beautiful face had a stupefied expression. She looked around blankly while muttering to herself, and in the end, she actually held her forehead with one hand while howling madly towards the sky with pain. Obviously, only a strand of corpse ancestor Hanba's soul quintessence was sealed within the treasure artifact, Hanba. Even though she was still herself, she was too damaged, and it was even to the extent that her memories were no longer complete. This scene stunned all the starry sky experts in the surrounding void. The peerless battle between Yi Xian and the others had stopped, and the entire expanse of space had fallen into deathly silence. When they faced corpse ancestor Hanba in such a state and heard the perplexed muttering coming from her mouth, the hearts of everyone shook violently, and they couldn't help but sigh with emotion. An almighty figure of the primordial era, an existence that was almost at the supreme level of that era, had actually been reduced to such a state. Her body had perished a long time ago, and only an incomplete strand of her soul quintessence remained, and it was sealed within an ancient treasure. This was too miserable. Many people started to develop their train of thought because of this, and they started to recall the peerless battle that occurred at the end of the primordial era all those years ago. Exactly what sort of calamity had occurred that caused even an existence that was second to the supreme level of the primordial era to be reduced to such a state? However, this was a battlefield, and it was also the place where an extremely important primordial treasure had appeared. It was not a peaceful place, and it was destined to be impossible for people to calm their hearts and sigh extravagantly. The thoughts of corpse ancestor Hanba's quintessence of life quintessence was quickly disrupted, and they suddenly came to their senses, and their thoughts returned to reality. Whoosh! Rumble! Hiss! The corpse ancestor Hidorigami roared again. This time, the expression on his face was completely ferocious. With a shake of his right arm, he pointed out from a distance of 500 kilometers, and two streams of black corpse flames shot out. He pointed to the east and actually broke through the barrier of distance. He tore through the void and directly appeared in front of the witch dust maiden. He turned into an incomparably sharp spear and pierced through her shoulder. A rain of blood immediately poured down, dyeing the ancient zither of hatred that rested on the witch's knees red. A canopy pointed to the west and instantly arrived. It was also a spear that pierced through fallen demon child's left arm, causing the demon chi banner he held in his left hand to almost fall from the sky. This was not the end. Almost at the same time, the sea of black corpse flames around corpse ancestor Hanba began to churn. Two huge black corpse flames soared into the sky from the north and south, turning into two hazy figures. They were like corpses and demons, with blood-black flesh on their backs. In the blink of an eye, they tore through the void and appeared behind Peng Jingxiao and Zhao Batian respectively. Their fangs were like spears, and they ruthlessly bit down on their necks. Roar! Oh! Peng Jingxiao and Zhao Batian were caught off guard. Their huge bloodline true bodies trembled violently, and their figures were already unstable. They almost fell from the void, and their auras were slightly weakened. This was clearly the rhythm of the two hazy corpses draining a small part of their bloodline essence qi. At the same time, a faint pink glow rushed out from between corpse ancestor Hanba's eyebrows. It turned into a waterfall, and like a nimble ghost blade, it slashed towards Yi Xian in the other direction. Roar! The dark green skull, which was already 50,000 feet in size, instantly roared. With a slight sway, it directly blocked in front of Yi Xian. Unfortunately, just as its ferocious wide mouth opened, the blood-colored waterfall that was formed by the primordial treasure, Yen Luo, in the shape of a thin brocade blade, had already slashed down vertically between the eyebrows of the dark green skull. In the blink of an eye, it was cut into two and exploded with a loud bang, turning into two dark green infernal energy that quickly rolled and dissipated. The dark green skull collapsed, and Yi Xian was hit by the backlash of the divine ability. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The nether body had suffered a serious injury in the blink of an eye, and had lost the ability to fight for a short period of time. He could not continue to use the nether body's bloodline divine ability, Nether Claw. He had to use the Een Pool innate cold liquid to heal his internal injuries before he could fight again. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it only took 3 breaths of time. The 5 supreme masters of the younger generation had reached or were comparable to the 12th great realm, the Void Realm. However, in just 3 breaths of time, they were all defeated by Hanba alone. The prestige of one of the 4 ancestors of the desolate ancient corpse path had been deduced to the extreme in just a few breaths of time. It was simply like a dream, with peerless grace. Although the corpse ancestor Hidorigami only had a strand of his spiritual sense origin left, he still had the cultivation base of the 15th great realm, the late stage of the universe realm. He could suppress the existence of the 12th great realm, the Void Realm. Even if there were 5 opponents, it was actually reasonable for him to complete the task within 3 breaths. However, there were more than 3 late-stage universe realm masters in the surrounding void. But if they were to attack just now, they would definitely not be able to do it. Whether it was Yi Xian, Demon Dust Maiden, Fallen Demon Sun, Peng Jingxiao, or Zhao Batian, the 5 of them were not ordinary existences. Even if they encountered the Genesis Realm Masters of the 13th Great Realm, they could still fight. Moreover, the 5 of them had treasures of the Desolate Ancient Era or the bloodline of the powerful existences of the Desolate Ancient Era. Their combat strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed. But even so, they were still collectively suppressed by corpse ancestor Hanba in just 3 breaths of time. Such a result of the battle shocked everyone, and the surrounding void was filled with gasps. Even Long Ziwen, Zhan Tu, Ancestor Wu Mei, and the other almighty figures in the 15th level of the universe turned pale with astonishment. They instantly realized the gap between them and corpse ancestor Hanba. Although they were all the mighty figures of the universe in the 15th realm, the corpse ancestor Drought Demon was an existence that truly originated from the primordial age. Now, just a wisp of incomplete spiritual sense was already so powerful. His combat experience and combat awareness were still there. He could definitely fight 2 or 3 mighty figures of the same realm by himself. This was definitely a heaven-defying rhythm. But even so, they still had to attack. Chapter 3451. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. What a blind dog. Corpse ancestor Hidorigami suddenly attacked and suppressed the 5 geniuses within 3 breaths. This scene shocked everyone, and all the experts from the top forces of the 3 universes in the surrounding void were in an uproar. The powerful figures of the universe roared and rushed out immediately. There were a total of 10 powerful figures of the universe present, and a total of 5 from the Federation of the Second Universe. There were 2 elders from the Green Rock Clan and the Blood Dragon Clan guarding the Starry Sky Fortress, 2 elders from the Barbarian Bull Clan and the Inji Clan from the Chenkuan Clan, and one who was alone and did not represent any clan. He was a powerful rogue cultivator from the Second Universe. In addition, there were 4 powerful figures of the universe from the Third Universe. They were the Imperial Family Elder Long Ziwen of the Immortal Dynasty, the elder Jianghu of the Heaven Battle Emperor clan, and his old friend ancestor Wu Mei. In addition, there was also a protector from the Tenju Celestial Palace of the Cultivation Camp. In addition to these 9 people, there was another powerful figure of the universe. His entire body was shrouded in a gray fog. No one knew which force he came from, but it was suspected that he was the ancestor of a servant clan under the Tianji clan of the First Universe. At this time, as the powerful figure of the universe, Corpse ancestor Hidorigami, attacked, the 10 powerful figures of the universe from the 3 universes all jumped out and used all kinds of methods. Some even took out their offensive treasures and swarmed forward together. This was the rhythm of besieging Corpse ancestor Hidorigami, wanting to suppress him and seize the primordial treasure Yanluo. So what if you're Corpse ancestor Hidorigami? You might be a figure in the primordial era, but in this world, you're just an incomplete source of spiritual sense. Even your memory is incomplete, so you can't cause much trouble. Hand over the treasure Yanluo immediately, or today will be the day you completely die. You can't even save a wisp of your soul. Corpse ancestor Hidorigami, I advise you not to make a mistake. Rumble. Screech. Swish. Along with numerous furious roars that resounded through space, the entire expanse of the universe had been thrown into chaos. The 10 great figures of the universe had joined forces to fight the Corpse ancestor and Hanba at the area where the pink pillar of light had shot into the sky and its surroundings. All kinds of energy surged endlessly, and the void was cracked. Turbulence in the void, and the light of all kinds of magic treasures and arts bloomed continuously. It was so. Is translation ancestor Hidorigami? Translation. Is translation. Translation. The methods of the Universe Almighty Expert were too terrifying. Normally, if 2 Universe Almighty Expert were to fight in anger, it would completely disturb a large area of space. But now, 11 Universe Almighty Experts were fighting in a chaotic battle, and the circle of battle continued to expand. In a short span of 10 breaths, the area of 10,000 miles was already filled with surging energy. The scene inside was completely obscured, and it was impossible to see clearly. At the same time, Peng Jingxiao and Zhao Batian, who were caught off guard and suddenly injured, also retreated bravely. The Chenkuan clan elder who was guarding the Starry Sky Fortress had already made his move. The fight for the Yanluo had nothing to do with them anymore, so healing their injuries was more important. On the other hand, the Witch Dust Maiden, the Fallen Demon's Son, and Yi Xian were the exact opposite. Although they retreated at the same time and avoided the area where the 11 supreme beings were fighting, the 3 of them seemed to have a tacit understanding. They teleported at the same time and chose the space on the right side of the chaotic battlefield in the central region, continuing to tangle with each other. To the 3 of them, this battle was unavoidable. Even if they were seriously injured and on the verge of death, they had to persevere. The pressure on the Demon Dust Maiden was slightly less, because even if she lost this competition, she would at most have to pay 2 of the System Exchange Store's treasures and shoulder a large amount of system debt. Even so, this kind of pressure was almost unbearable for her. After all, if she really failed the system competition mission, Yi Xian and Fallen Demon's Son would definitely not be polite. Even if they did not need it, they would definitely choose the treasure with the highest exchange price. Her losses were too heavy. If even she was in such a situation, then there was no need to mention Yi Xian and Fallen Demon's Son. Once they failed the system competition mission, then they would not even be able to protect the devouring system within their bodies. Everything would be taken away by the Demon Dust Maiden, including their lives. So compared to the Demon Dust Maiden, Yi Xian and Fallen Demon's Son were under even greater pressure. Amongst them, Yi Xian was in a bad situation. Earlier, Corpse ancestor Hidorigami had attacked Yi Xian's group of 5 at the same time. Even though the Fallen Demon's Son and Demon Dust Maiden had suffered quite heavy injuries, they had both utilized a primordial treasure during the battle. So, a portion of Corpse ancestor Hidorigami's attack had been shared with the primordial treasures they had refined. On the other hand, Yi Xian was different. He was using the innate divine ability of the Netherworld bloodline. When the 50,000-meter-tall dark green skull was destroyed by the Silk Blood Blade, Yi Xian was the only one who suffered the backlash. After that attack, his nether lineage had been heavily injured. Even though he could still maintain it, he no longer had the ability to attack. Both the Fallen Demon's Son and Demon Dust Maiden had vaguely sensed this. The Fallen Demon's Son frowned. He had already realized how difficult it would be to deal with the Demon Dust Maiden. However, the system competition mission was extremely disadvantageous to him, so he could not afford to lose. Under these circumstances, even though he was competing with Yi Xian, he had planned to first join forces with Yi Xian to deal with the Demon Dust Maiden together. After all, once the Demon Dust Maiden's crisis was resolved, even if he lost the system competition mission against Yi Xian, he would at most lose a system competition treasure. The pressure would be completely different. But right now, Yi Xian was in such a state, causing his plan to become unrealistic. Currently, the fallen demon's son was considering what kind of response he should take in this situation. As for the Demon Dust Maiden, she did not hesitate at all. Since Yi Xian was currently at a disadvantage, eliminating one of them first was naturally the best choice for her. This was because once she won a system competition mission, she would immediately receive a lot of benefits. Not only would her injuries recover immediately, but her cultivation would also skyrocket. She might even be able to grasp more techniques. With this thought, a murderous light flashed in the Demon Dust Maiden's eyes. Her figure swayed, and she immediately pounced towards Yi Xian. Almost at the same time, the fallen demon's son finally made his decision. His choice was the same. He would first eliminate the weaker Yi Xian. This was also beneficial to him. Previously, he had taken a fancy to a treasure in the system exchange store. It was very beneficial to him in his current predicament. As long as he could kill Yi Xian, even if he was severely injured, the fallen demon's son would immediately be able to obtain exchange treasure from Yi Xian's system exchange store. The system in Yi Xian's body was also at an intermediate mutation, so it was very likely that he would have the treasure that he needed. It was precisely because of this consideration that the fallen demon's son waved the Demon Dust Maiden in his hand at the same time as she rushed out. A demon god thousands of feet tall lunged towards Yi Xian. Two competitors actually attacked him at the same time. The originally three-sided chaotic battle turned into a 2-on-1 in the blink of an eye. Yi Xian became a pushover. It was as if everyone wanted to pinch him. Chapter 3452. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin my lords or a blind dog? As soon as Yi Xian roared, the experts of the starry sky in the camps of the major forces in the surrounding void immediately exclaimed in surprise. Almost all the experts of the starry sky, who were originally paying attention to the battle between the 11 powerful figures of universe on the other side, all shifted their gazes over. After all, the entire void over there was covered by the rolling and surging energy mist, and nothing could be seen. However, it seemed that something big was about to happen here, and it must be extremely exciting. Previously, it was just a three-way battle, but now, the Demon Dust Woman and the Fallen Demon's Son attacked the Netherworld Young Master at the same time. The battle strength displayed by the three of them was equal in the previous battle. Although the Netherworld Young Master seemed to be more amazing, his cultivation was only at the 10th level of the Grotto Heaven realm, but he could fight evenly with the Demon Dust Woman and the Fallen Demon's Son, who were at the 12th level of the Void realm. However, just now, in the face of the lightning attack of the corpse ancestor Hanba, the Netherworld Young Master was clearly injured the most, and it seemed that he had lost the ability to continue fighting. However, the Demon Dust Woman and the Fallen Demon's Son, who still had the strength to fight, attacked him at the same time. Under such circumstances, the Netherworld Young Master's situation and danger could be imagined. All of this was witnessed by the experts of the starry sky in the camps of the major forces in the surrounding void, and they were well aware of it. Therefore, at this moment, when they heard Yi Xian's arrogant roar, they were stunned at first, and then sighed one after another. They believed that Yi Xian knew that he was going to die, and that he was going crazy before despair. Alas, what a pity! The Netherworld Young Master is definitely stronger than the Demon Dust Woman and the Fallen Demon's Son. In this battle, the battle strength he displayed just now is equal to the two of them. But he is only at the 5th level of the Grotto Heaven realm, and he doesn't have any ancient treasures in his hand. He fought evenly with them with his brute strength, but now he is going to die. This is definitely an existence comparable to the two peerless geniuses of the human clan, the invincible war god and the young master Linghu. His growth potential surpasses that of the Demon Dust Woman and the Fallen Demon's Son. Whether he really came from the ancient times or not, his talent can't be buried. He was originally destined to bloom in this world. It's time, it's fate. He didn't possess any precious treasures in this battle, and he was heavily injured by the corpse ancestor, Hanba, causing him to seem to have lost the ability to continue fighting. This is the sorrow of a tiger that has fallen to the ground. Even though Devil Dust Maiden and Devilfall Sun aren't dogs, A tiger like young Master Netherworld is going to lie down in his lair. There will be an eternal mystery left in this world. With the fall of young Master Netherworld, his identity and origin will become an eternal mystery, just like young Master Linghu's final whereabouts and life and death. Those who are too monstrous will incur the jealousy of the heavens. Young Master Netherworld was like that, and so was young Master Linghu. Was this a vicious cycle? Could it really be the power of curses? Will the invincible war god in the human cultivator's territory be spared? Following these exclamations and sighs, the atmosphere in the surrounding void instantly became a little stagnant and oppressive. All the starry sky powerhouses looked at Xianxia with a trace of pity in their eyes. In the distance, the pitch-black Black Lion Star Fortress suddenly began to charge at full speed, and the muzzles of the death ray cannon on the ship were activated. This was clearly the result of Yin Qi, Yin Ba, and Yin Jiu being unwilling to accept the imminent death of young Master Netherworld. They gradually became crazy and wanted to use the power of the death ray cannon to disrupt the rhythm of the battle. There was no doubt that as soon as the death ray cannon was fully charged, they would immediately give the order to bombard. The fleets of the several major forces in the void facing the Black Lion Star Fortress had already begun to dodge to the sides to avoid being caught in the crossfire. However, everyone was obviously not optimistic about this kind of struggling remedy. Devil Dust Maiden and Devilfall Sun were already existences in the 12th Great Realm, rank 1 void. They were also peerless geniuses of the human clan. Their methods were extraordinary, and they also had a primordial treasure. Moreover, they were thousands of miles away. In this situation where they already knew the whereabouts of the Black Lion Star Fortress, even the death ray cannon might not be able to cause any substantial hindrance or interference to them. In this battle, young Master Netherworld was bound to die. This was the consensus of all the spectating powerhouses. However, it was at this moment that a heaven-shaking change that no one had expected suddenly occurred without any warning. Your cultivation is high, and you have treasures. I have nothing. My cultivation has not recovered, and I am only at rank 5 Grotto Heaven. I don't have any treasures, and I only have the bloodline ability of the Netherworld clan. At this time, Xianxia's eyes were bloodshot. The Devil Dust Maiden and Devilfall Sun's joint bullying made him furious. He was a little crazy and was on the verge of going berserk. As he spoke, his hair fluttered wildly, and his expression was ferocious. His figure was suspended in the void, and he did not dodge the full-force attacks of Devil Dust Maiden and Devilfall Sun. He completely ignored them. In the end, he roared to the sky. However, I also have a final trump card, which is enough to suppress all enemies in the world. Screech! As Xianxia's roaring voice sounded, the corpse lamp tattoo on his chest also suddenly burned and instantly disappeared, leaving only a piercing roar of a corpse. It was clearly a roar from the corpse lamp tattoo on his chest, but because Xian also happened to look up at the sky and roar ferociously, all the powerhouses in the surrounding void mistakenly thought that this strange roar came from Xian's mouth. Before the roar ended, Xian's face showed a hint of sluggishness. What happened to the infant corpse? Even if it didn't show its true body, it should at least show some terrifying magical power, right? Xian would not reject this. Although he had already said that he would train himself and try not to rely on the power of the infant corpse and the Rai-D seal to resolve the crisis, he did not have the ability to deal with it. It was just that he was afraid that his identity would be exposed, so it was inconvenient for him to use many of his methods. Under such circumstances, it was completely acceptable for him to occasionally let the headless infant corpse use its methods to resolve the situation. However, the situation was clearly not right. Just now, the corpse lamp tattoo on his chest was so hot that Xian thought that the mysterious guy was going to use some kind of ultimate move. That was why he roared such words domineeringly, claiming that he still had a final trump card, which was enough to suppress all enemies in the world. But the result was a big joke. The headless infant corpse only let out a strange roar, and then completely went silent. The corpse lamp tattoo on his chest no longer had any burning sensation. Xian had already figured this out, so he could be sure. This was clearly a scam. The last few words were shouted in such a high-profile manner that the countless starry sky powerhouses in the surrounding void were all aghast. They all looked over in shock, and even the Black Lion in the distant void had stopped recharging. If he did not use any ultimate move in the end, there was no need for the fallen demon sun and the demon dust woman to make a move. Xian himself would die of shame and anger, vomiting blood and dying on the spot. When these thoughts flashed through his mind, Xian's face turned green. The demon dust woman and the fallen demon sun, who were rushing towards him, also showed vigilance and suspicion on their faces. Just as Xianxia did not know how to deal with the aftermath, the corpse ancestor Hitorigami suddenly roared angrily in the distance where the 11 universe masters were fighting in the sky. This is the aura of our master? Chapter 3453. My beloved, rise, this is my lord's aura? Screech. The murmur of corpse ancestor Hanba resounded, causing all the experts from the various top powers in the surrounding space to be stunned. Before they could react, a violent howl that shook the heavens suddenly sounded out from the place where the aura was in chaos, and it clearly revealed a wisp of excitement that was difficult to conceal. Immediately after, a blood-red light shot into the sky. Corpse ancestor Drought Demon, who was besieged by 10 supreme experts of the universe, suddenly erupted with a powerful aura at this moment. He directly broke through the encirclement that even sealed a small area of space, transforming into a ray of light that shot towards Xianxia. In the blink of an eye, she was already 100 meters away from him. She suddenly stopped, revealing a peerlessly graceful figure. However, on that peerlessly beautiful face, the original ferocious expression had already disappeared, replaced by a wisp of excitement. Even her eyes were slightly red. My lord! Under the dumbstruck gazes of all the experts in the surrounding space, corpse ancestor Drought Demon, who had charged out of the encirclement, actually knelt down on one knee in the air. The blood-bone spear in his hand had also disappeared. He lowered his head and cupped his hands towards Xianxia as he called out, My lord! Plop! Plop! This scene was too strange, causing everyone to be caught off guard. Some of them were stunned on the spot, their bodies froze, and they almost fell from the sky. Among them, this included the demon dust woman and the fallen devil child, who were charging towards Xianxia. Their figures had just stopped 1,000 miles away because Xianxia's sudden roar was somewhat suspicious. After all, he was a peerless monster who could fight them to a draw in the heavenly passage realm, so they couldn't help but be afraid of his crazy counterattack before his death. The moment their bodies froze, they were already on full alert. But even so, the demon dust woman and the fallen devil child still did not expect to see such a scene. They felt their vision go black, and they almost fell from the sky on the spot. My lord? What kind of joke is this? What kind of method did this kid use? How could he have so easily fooled a universe master from the primordial age in such a short period of time? After all, less than a minute ago, the corpse ancestor Hanba had made a move against Xianxia, causing him to suffer a heavy injury and lose the ability to continue fighting. If this fellow was really in existence from the primordial era, then how could the corpse ancestor Hanba not have recognized him earlier? Yet now, he had suddenly recognized him after he suddenly roared? Besides that, even the Netherworld Emperor from the primordial era probably didn't possess the qualifications to become the master of the corpse ancestor, Hanba, right? Even though the Netherworld Emperor was an exalted figure of the primordial era, the corpse ancestor, Hanba, was a great figure of the primordial era that was merely inferior to the exalted figure of the primordial era. Coupled with the fact that he was one of the 4 ancestors of the corpse Tao, he was wild and unyielding, so it was absolutely impossible for him to respect the Netherworld Emperor as his master. All of this was filled with a dense and strange aura, causing the demon dust maiden and the fallen demon son to have a bad feeling. So after they glanced at corpse ancestor Hanba with astonishment, the two of them glanced at Xianxia with complicated gazes, and then they didn't hesitate to immediately turn around and flee. Unfortunately, it was too late. Even though Xianxia was slightly stunned as well when facing all of this, he was obviously the first to recover from his shock. At practically the instant that corpse ancestor Hanba let out that vicious roar, he'd understood exactly who the master Hanba spoke of was. It was clearly the headless corpse of an infant. It was even to the extent that he wasn't surprised. Even the divine gold dragon and the primordial Yuxia had over 100 supreme existences under his command. So what could corpse ancestor Hanba, who hadn't attained the supreme exalt rank of the primordial era, be? However, this at least allowed him to understand one thing, and that was that corpse ancestor Hanba's main body was on the same side as the infant corpse back then. To put it bluntly, they were on the same side. Since that was the case, then the matter of him accidentally injuring him could be forgotten. Thinking like this, Xianxia's resentment towards corpse ancestor Hanba disappeared, but he definitely wouldn't let go of this perfect opportunity to act like a big bad wolf. He immediately placed his hands behind his back and glanced disdainfully at corpse ancestor Hanba, who was still cupping his fists and lowering his head, kneeling on one knee in the void 100 meters in front of him. He nodded slightly and said, "Oh, at least you still have some intelligence. You actually recognize this ancestor. My beloved, rise. Plop. Plop. As soon as these words left his mouth, a series of thumping sounds came from the surroundings. Many experts fell from the sky like dumplings, while the demon dust maiden and the fallen demon's son, who had turned around and fled, were so angry that the roots of their teeth were itching. Everyone could see that Yi Xian was pretending, but in the face of such a situation, what could they do? The person kneeling in front of him was a supreme expert of the universe. You two blind dogs, you actually want to run? Before the demon dust maiden and the fallen demon's son could escape far, Yi Xian's cold laughter rang out. He raised his hand and pointed into the distance, shouting, "Why are you still kneeling? Just keep the two of them here and bind them. Don't kill them." What he wanted was for the two of them to admit defeat and allow him to win the system's competitive mission. If he really killed them, the exchange treasure in the system's exchange store would probably be wasted. In addition, as long as he could win the system's competitive mission, then the system in his opponent's body would be branded with a subordinate source code, which would definitely be of great use in the future. Therefore, Yi Xian had never thought of killing them, including Xiao Zi and Fairy Xia. Whoosh! As soon as Yi Xian's words fell, a blood-red waterfall rushed out from between the corpse ancestor Hanba's eyebrows. It expanded with the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a pink silk cloth that was thousands of feet long. It wrapped around the demon dust maiden and the fallen demon's son, completely imprisoning them. A supreme expert of the universe had made a move, and he had even used the primordial treasure, the Yen Luo. There was no doubt about the result. In the blink of an eye, the Yen Luo, which had shrunk again, brought the demon dust maiden and the fallen demon's son to Yi Xian. It tightly wrapped the two of them, making them look like human-shaped cocoons. Not a single inch of their skin was exposed. Yi Xian sneered, "I'll give you 3 breaths of time to admit defeat. Otherwise, once the Yen Luo tightens its grip, you will immediately explode into pieces of flesh and blood." 2 sighs came from the 2 pink human-shaped cocoons. At least they could keep their lives if they admitted defeat. There was no need to choose. Almost at the same time, the familiar system notification sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The system's competitive mission has been completed. The host's reward is to choose any exchange item from the opponent system's exchange store. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The system's competitive mission has been completed. The system's reward is to unconditionally copy all the information in the opponent's system database. At the same time, imprint the system's source code and establish a subordinate relationship. The same system notification sounded in Yi Xian's mind twice in succession. At this point, his tight heartstrings were finally completely relaxed. Everything was settled, and there were no more changes. Chapter 3454. The target of public criticism. Just as the system's notification sounded in his mind, the demonic dust lady and the fallen demon prince, whose bodies were completely bound and sealed in a huge humanoid cocoon, had their faces visibly darkened. Their faces were so dark that it was as if water could drip from them. At this moment, their hearts were dripping blood. They gnashed their teeth fiercely, and their faces were full of unwillingness, but there was nothing they could do. The sound of the system notification rang out, which meant that the competition had failed, and they had no chance to make a comeback. But no matter how unwilling they were, they didn't lose their temper at all because Yi Xian had executed such a divine ability at the critical moment, and even corpse ancestor Hanba had been strangely subdued by him. They had no choice but to accept all of this. Ha ha ha. The two of you still lost in the end. Yi Xian raised his head and laughed heartily. He was in an extremely good mood. However, he did not waste any time. He immediately issued an order to the devouring system in his body, and chose a treasure for exchange from the exchange store in the fallen demon son and demon dust lady. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The 2 treasures that were chosen for the exchange directly appeared in his body. Yi Xian didn't even bother to look at them in detail as he directly threw them into his undying world. At the same time, the source codes of the fallen demon son and the demon dust woman systems, as well as the data copied from each other's systems, were all completed. At this point, Yi Xian had completed the 2 competitive missions that had been launched at the same time. Moreover, he had obtained the primordial treasure, Yen Luo. For Yi Xian, everything in the Sea of Hellish Turtles had been completed. It was time to leave. However, it was also at this moment that a series of frenzied roars and roars suddenly came from the surrounding void. The energy mist thousands of miles away was still surging, and 10 figures with terrifying auras whistled over at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they were already close. Gathering flame chop. 7 stars trample the heavens, seal the heavens. Fengyu Huiming. Devastating silver bullet wave. These 10 figures with terrifying auras were precisely those 10 great figures of the universe that had besieged corpse ancestor Hanba earlier. At this moment, they'd attacked at the same time, and they'd approached Xianxia in the blink of an eye. The brilliance of all kinds of magical treasures was dazzling for a moment. Among them, the fastest figure was actually the protector of the Earth Extinction Temple from the Third Universe's Cultivation Camp. This person was a woman, and the overturning nation's silver bullet wave she displayed was similar to a powerful deity who could shrink the ground into an inch. This was a kind of ethereal footwork that could be said to be devastatingly beautiful. Coupled with the invisible energy emitted by the true qi, the ever-changing situation was perfectly combined together. It could quietly control the rhythm of the battle unknowingly, making the opponent feel awkward. The weak could defeat the strong, and the control of the battle would always be in the hands of the weak. Unknowingly, Yi Xian even had a strange feeling that his heartbeat was synchronized with his opponent's footwork, which made him feel a chill run down his back. It was also at this moment that another mighty figure of the universe suddenly waved his hand from afar. He roared, "Illusion Ghost's triple kill." The so-called triple kill was actually 3 different blade techniques. The blade was like an illusion ghost, and each style was stronger than the previous one. Each style could kill, and it could be said to be able to kill illusionary ghosts. As he waved his hand from afar, a huge energy blade that was 100 feet long rumbled over. There were 3 layers of dim shadows superimposed on the blade, and its aura was terrifying. However, this slash also broke the rhythm of the battle that the female protector of the Earth Extinction Temple had unknowingly mastered. The feeling that made Yi Xian's heart follow the opponent's footwork suddenly disappeared. The female protector's face was cold. She knew that the other party did it deliberately. Although these 10 people had joined forces to attack, they were actually secretly fighting each other. Everyone wanted to get Yan Luo. Once someone had an obvious advantage, the others would naturally destroy it secretly. Without waiting for the female protector of the Earth Extinction Temple to react, one of the 9 great figures of the universe behind her waved his hand and cast out 9 bloody lights, which turned into 9 banners and firmly inserted in the surrounding void. These 9 blood-red banners were a set of Een magic treasures called the 9 Een Beast Soul Banners. It was said that they were made from the souls of more than 10,000 ferocious beasts in the starry sky, and the black threads refined from the foul air in the depths of thousands of cold stars. They were extremely vicious. There were a total of 9 banners. Once they were cast out at the same time, they could instantly form a sealing formation and seal a corner of the void. At this moment, with Yi Xian and the corpse ancestor Hanba as the center, the void within 1,000 miles had been temporarily sealed. Now Yi Xian was obviously the target of public criticism. These 10 great figures of the universe had only targeted the corpse ancestor Hanba before, but now they had surrounded him as well. In the surrounding void, the great figures of the universe in the fleets from the top forces of the 3 universes were eyeing him covetously. He had become the center of attention, which made Yi Xian complain inwardly. Now was the time to retreat. How could he escape when he was suddenly under the attention of so many people? Seeing Yi Xian's eyes flickering, Zhan Tu and the ancestor without eyebrows subconsciously exchanged glances. Both of them were enlightened. They had already realized something, so they quietly slowed down their attacks and even feigned attacks to jointly occupy a position. At this time, they were no longer thinking of leaving the corpse ancestor Hanba behind. Instead, they secretly helped Yi Xian leave, and then they would attack and take everything for themselves. Although the corpse ancestor Hanba was extremely powerful, and even if the 2 of them joined forces, they might not be able to resist him. However, if Yi Xian wanted to leave, he would definitely change his identity and quietly escape. Under such circumstances, the corpse ancestor Hanba would not be by his side. He should have entered the Yan Luo and been absorbed into Yi Xian's body. In this way, as long as they were fast enough to restrain Yi Xian at lightning speed and cut off the opportunity for him to use the Bao Luo, everything would be settled without suspense. 2 powerful figures of the universe attacked at the same time. Moreover, they were well prepared. Their opponent was only at level 5 of the Tao Insight realm. It was not a problem for them to do this. Let them go. Don't worry about them. Yi Xian swept his gaze over the 9 Een Beast Soul flags in the air. He was fearless as he indifferently said, "Previously, You were able to calmly withdraw from the encirclement of these 10 old bastards. I believe it shouldn't be difficult for you to do so now, right? I'm tired. There are 2 gigolos in the 9 Dragons Cyan Phoenix carriage. I can use them to nurse my body. But first, I need to find a quiet place. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at the black lion in the void in the distance. He pointed at it and said, "Hey, let's go there." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the pink Yen Luo quietly shook and threw out the fallen demon sun and the demon dust woman. Then, it unfolded and rolled, directly covering Yi Xian. The corpse ancestor Hanba also jumped into it. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a blood-red waterfall and soared into the sky. Without any suspense, it rushed out of the imprisonment of the 9 Shadow Beast soul banners. It was as if there was no one around. Chapter 3455. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The cicada shedding its carapace. Hanba, the ancestor of the corpse tribe, looked down on everything. She had escaped from the joint attack and imprisonment of 10 equally powerful figures of the universe twice. This was not something that could be explained by the fact that she was a wisp of the spiritual sense of a powerful figure from the remote antiquity era. Everything must be related to the treasure of the remote antiquity era, Yen Luo. Although this strand of corpse ancestor Hanba's spirit sense was sealed in this treasure, it was also because of this that this strand of her spirit sense had fused with this treasure. Perhaps there was more than one strand of the Huanggu Yen Xiu's spirit sense that was sealed in this treasure, but she was the only one that had awakened. The power of the treasure, Yen Luo, could be fully exerted in her hands. From a certain point of view, this was actually the same as if the treasure was obtained by a powerful figure of the present age and completely refined. However, if it was in the hands of a powerful figure of the present age, even if they refined it, if their cultivation was not high enough, they would not be able to exert the power of the treasure to such an extent. The power of the treasure that Hanba, the ancestor of the corpse tribe, had just displayed, could be used to attack and defend. It could also enter and leave the void as if there was no one there. Perhaps this was not its strongest state. At least, it could only be exerted by a powerful figure of the universe. If one's cultivation was higher than that of a powerful figure of the universe, the treasure would be even more powerful after being refined. At this point, the powerful figures of the starry sky who had witnessed everything were all enlightened at this moment. They had a deeper understanding of this mysterious treasure of the remote antiquity era. Precisely because of this, when a large number of gasps sounded in the void, the fleets of the top forces immediately activated their kinetic energy and surrounded the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress from all directions. A large number of powerful figures of the starry sky followed behind the 10 powerful figures of the universe. They all took out their magic treasures and used all their means to seal this part of the void and do their best to stop the escape of the Black Lion Starry Sky. At this time, the treasure Yen Luo, which had turned into a blood-red waterfall, finally entered the main passage of the Black Lion Starry Sky, which had been opened in advance. Then, the main passage closed, and the rumbling sound of kinetic energy starting came. In the Black Lion Starry Sky, Yin Qi's excited roar faintly sounded, "Charge! Charge! Once it's done, we'll perform a spatial leap and leave this place." Even he had realized that he had to flee now. Otherwise, he would become the target of all the fleets and experts in the surroundings. He had obtained the Yen Luo, and the corpse ancestor and the drought demon had been subdued by the ancestor. The other forces would not be willing to accept this. This matter could not be settled peacefully. You want to leave? I'm afraid that's impossible today. That's right. We must not let him leave. Otherwise, who will be able to suppress the Netherworld young master in the future? This guy was already heaven-defying to begin with. He was comparable to Prince Xian of the human clan, the invincible god of war, and young master Linghu. He could be said to be one of the 4 great evildoers of the present age. Now, he has obtained the precious weapon, the smokescreen net. Just the wisp of spiritual sense that has already been awakened in the world is already a top-notch universe mighty figure. He is like a tiger that has a seed. If we don't suppress him today, he will definitely bring disaster to the present age. Especially the various races of the second universe. I'm afraid that everyone will be in danger in the future. This guy is a big foodie who is not inferior to young master Linghu. Even lion boffing was roasted into a braised lion's head in public. What else is there that he doesn't dare to do? Surround him immediately. We must not let him escape. If the Black Lion wants to perform a spatial leap, even if the precious weapon, the smokescreen net, is destroyed, we can only take action. At that time, thousands of cannons will fire at the same time. The Black Lion will be turned into powder after a round of fire, not to mention the Netherworld young master in the ship. Buzz! Buzz! Along with the exclamations in the surrounding void, the space oscillators of the battleships were fully loaded. Thousands of battleships of different levels. Thousands of space oscillators of different types and powers were aimed at the Black Lion that was surrounded at the same time. Ripples immediately appeared in the void, and it was completely trapped. Not to mention performing a spatial leap, even ordinary navigation was extremely difficult. Its speed could not be increased at all. It was like moving at a snail's pace. Under such circumstances, it was no longer realistic for the Netherworld young master to use the Black Lion to escape. It was simply impossible. However, whether it was the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, Zhao Qianru, or Jianghu and the eyeless old ancestor, none of them were worried in the slightest. The former basically knew a little about Yixian's background, and the latter at least knew his identity as young Master Linghu. Previously, in the Heavenly Chen star region under the rule of the Heavenly War Empire in the Third Universe, the situation was the same, but young Master Linghu still left calmly. Today's situation was also not difficult for him. At this time, Jianghu and the eyeless old ancestor were secretly communicating with each other. This brat is full of tricks. Now that he has entered the Black Lion, if nothing unexpected happens, he has most likely changed his identity. I think something will happen soon. Yes, at that time, he will definitely take advantage of this opportunity to escape. You and I have to be careful, don't let him escape. Exchanging a glance, the two of them quietly retreated to the back. Their figures gradually faded away, disappearing from sight. The 10 mighty figures of heaven and earth were originally eye-catching figures. However, at this moment, the void was too chaotic. The energy and chi were extremely chaotic, and the shadows of people were flickering. For a short period of time, no one noticed the mysterious disappearance of Jianghu and the ancestor of the eyebrows. At the same time, in the Black Lion Star Fortress, Yixian's figure appeared, and then the pink silk cloth that was originally wrapped around his body automatically loosened. The corpse ancestor Hidorigami did not appear, and the pink silk cloth was directly absorbed into Yixian's body with a wave of his hand. Old ancestor, what should we do now? Seeing this scene, especially that the corpse ancestor Hidorigami with a terrifying aura did not appear, Yin Qi, Yin Ba, and Yin Jiu were slightly relieved and immediately came forward, their faces full of panic, because in the void around the ship, the space oscillators of thousands of battleships and fortresses had been activated, so it was impossible for the Black Lion to perform a space jump to leave. It doesn't matter, it's just a group of chickens and pottery dogs. I need to heal now, and after I recover, I will refine the precious weapon Yen Luo. Yixian sneered in his heart, but he did not show it on his face. He did not have the slightest good impression of this group of people, especially Yin Qi. Yixian now knew that he was the one who put the immortal and imperishable bead in the Shenong cauldron, so it was good that he did not kill him personally. After waving his hand with a calm expression, Yixian walked towards a cabin. There's no need to pay attention to those fellows outside. The treasure, Yen Luo, is still in this ancestor's hands. They won't be willing to destroy it. At most, they'll just threaten me. After I recover from my injuries and refine the Yen Luo, it will be easy to join forces with Hidorigami to break through the siege. After that, the secret door of the cabin behind him was already closed. Yixian waved his hand to set up a restriction, and then directly issued an order to the devouring system in his body, immediately activating the universal coordinate jumping ability attached to the system title, and jumping to the destination. The second universe Bitwall, the ancestral land of the Yin Demon Clan. Yin's Nest. Chapter 3456. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. I don't understand. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, 2 hours had passed. During this period of time, the Black Lion had been under tremendous pressure. The thousands of warships, fortresses in the surrounding void had been fully activating the space oscillators, trapping a large area of the void. The Black Lion in the central domain could not even perform a normal flight, let alone perform a space jump. It had been 2 hours, and it had not moved half a step, remaining in the same place all the time. During this time, the flagships of the top forces of the 3 universes in the surrounding void sent out threatening words from time to time, saying that they were going to use force. Each time, the tens of thousands of Yin demons in the Black Lion were scared witless. After all, there was only one Black Lion, while thousands of warships and fortresses of various types were surrounding it. There were even many small fortresses and real space fortresses. If thousands of cannons were to be fired at the same time, the heat of the energy light beams from the star cannons could directly vaporize the Black Lion. However, these guys didn't take action in the end. On the one hand, they were unwilling to let their precious weapon, the smoky net, be destroyed. On the other hand, they were still hoping that they could capture Xianxia alive or force him to surrender. In addition, the 8 powerful figures of the universe, including Long Ziwen, the imperial elder of the everlasting dynasty, each occupied a region. However, they didn't take any action in the past 2 hours. They had already discovered the strange disappearance of Jianghu and the elf-less ancestor and realized that there must be something fishy about it. However, they didn't have time to care about it. After all, they had all seen young Master Netherworld enter the Black Lion with their own eyes. Now that this part of the void was confined, teleportation, space jump, and even teleportation formations couldn't be used, young Master Netherworld must still be in the Black Lion. As long as this didn't change, they didn't have to worry about Jianghu and the elf-less ancestors' tricks and plots. They just had to keep an eye on the target. However, because they were afraid of the corpse ancestor, Hanba, these 8 great figures hadn't made a move during the past 2 hours of time, and it was even to the extent that they didn't speak much. All of them resided in the surrounding space as they thought bitterly about a good plan. In fact, they were anxious and worried that the situation would change if they delayed. However, none of them dared to act rashly. If they took action and were ambushed by Ancestor Corpse Drought Demon as soon as they entered the Black Lion, that would be too unfair. The other party was a top-notch almighty who could fight against several universe almighties at the same time. He could not let his guard down. At the same time, on the top floor of the Black Lion Star Fortress, the 3 elders, Yin Qi, Yin Ba, and Yin Jiao, had been waiting in the main control cabin on the top floor the entire time. They were more than 1,000 meters away from the cabin door that Xian had entered. Ever since Xian had entered, the 3 old fellows had not taken a single step away. They stared at the cabin door, hoping every minute and every second that it would open immediately. This kind of situation of being surrounded by enemies and threatened from time to time, yet being completely unable to move an inch, was too heart-wrenching. Every second felt like years. Unfortunately, it was useless for them to be anxious. After entering the cabin, the ancestor did not come out. After 2 hours, the 3 old men's patience was exhausted. At this moment, they finally could not sit still anymore. Yin Jiao immediately got up and walked toward the independent cabin where Xian was in seclusion. Yin Qi and Yin Ba looked at each other, but did not say anything. They stayed where they were and waited. The door of the independent cabin was not closed from the inside. The restriction set by Xian was only a simple tactical array that blocked the detection of divine sense. Therefore, after the cabin door was opened, Yin Jiao stepped in quickly. After a short while, Yin Jiao, who had finished walking around the few rooms inside, walked out with a pale face. He was like a completely different person from when he went in. In just more than a minute, his eyes were staring blankly, and his eyes were dull. He was simply like a walking corpse. He even muttered to himself, "Gone, gone, gone." Yin Qi and Yin Ba's expressions changed immediately. They hurriedly went up to him. The former asked anxiously with a trembling voice, "Old Jiao, what's wrong with you? What's gone? What's gone? I don't quite understand." "The ancestor is gone. The ancestor is." Hearing Yin Qi's questioning words, Yin Jiao's body trembled. He shuddered and came back to his senses in an instant. Then he jumped up and roared in exasperation, "Old ancestor my ass! That guy is really a fake. He left us behind and ran away alone. Let alone the people in the cabin, there is not even a hair. We're finished. Finished. We're really finished. Those guys outside will eat the 3 of us." Yin Qi and Yin Ba's expressions changed drastically. They fell to the ground and were completely dumbfounded. In the surrounding void outside the cabin of the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress. For 2 hours, the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress did not move at all. As time went by, the atmosphere in the surrounding void became more and more strange. The Starry Sky Masters in the fleets of the top forces from the 3 universes became more and more anxious. Some of them even began to feel restless. Finally, from the flagships of these fleets, several figures dashed out one after another toward the 8 supreme beings of the 15th realm, who were occupying one side of the inner circle of the encirclement. Then they all asked the elders of the Universe clan for help. "Elder, we can't go on like this. 2 hours have passed. Even if young Master Netherworld wants to recover from his injuries first, there should be enough time. This is too strange. I'm afraid there is something fishy." Although the surrounding void has been confined, and even the teleportation array can't be activated, young Master Netherworld is definitely still in the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress. But if this continues, the situation will become worse. If something unexpected happens, it will be even worse. Should we take some measures? Why don't we send some masters to approach the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress and test it out? If there is no problem, then we will invade. Long Ziwen, the 8 supreme beings of the Universe clan from the Green Rock clan, the Blood Dragon clan, and the other clans frowned. They turned to look at each other and exchanged glances. In the end, they nodded one after another. This couldn't go on like this. They were already impatient. The dozen or so figures who came to ask for help were overjoyed and immediately returned to their flagships. After a short while, a small team rushed out from the flagships of the fleets in the surrounding void. There were a total of hundreds of people, and they swarmed toward the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress from different directions. They approached the fortress cautiously. At this moment, the hearts of the other masters were in their throats. They were afraid that the moment this group of probing forces approached the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress, they would be ambushed by Corpse Ancestor Hanba, who was hiding inside. However, a scene that no one had expected suddenly appeared at this moment. Whoosh! An energy light screen flashed, and the main passage of the Black Lion Starry Sky Fortress suddenly opened. Then, a large flag stretched out from inside. The flag was actually a large piece of white cloth. Surrender? Everyone was dumbfounded. Chapter 3457. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations gone just like that. It was not only Jianghu and the ancestor without eyebrows. In fact, the moment the white flag that represented surrender stretched out from the main channel of the Black Lion, all the experts of the big influences in the surrounding void, especially Long Ziwen and the other 7 powerful figures of heaven and earth, were on high alert at the first moment. With young Master Netherworld's temperament, how could he admit defeat, surrender, and allow himself to be captured? It should be known that he still had the corpse ancestor Hidorigami, who could fight against several powerful figures of the same level. In addition, he had the primordial antiquity treasure, Yen Luo, which could attack and defend, and had the terrifying power to break restrictions. Even if he could not take the Black Lion battleship and the more than 10,000 clansmen of the Een Demon clan, he could not leave together with them. But if he risked his life, it was very possible for him to leave alone under the cover of corpse ancestor Hidorigami. Therefore, in the eyes of the surrounding experts, this kind of surrender after waiting quietly for 2 hours was clearly a trick to deceive the enemy. The Netherworld young master wanted to numb the opponent, and perhaps create chaos later, and then take advantage of the chaos to find an opportunity to escape. In the surrounding void, some people started to sneer. Zhan Tu and ancestor Wu Mei, who were hiding in the distance, secretly opened their divine senses to the maximum extent, and gazed at everything invisibly. A few breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye. The white flag swayed for a while, and then slowly extended outward. Then, a pair of hands appeared at the end of the flag, and then a face stretched out, full of anxiety. His head stretched out stealthily, and looked left and right. After revealing a smile that was uglier than crying, Yin Qi finally gritted his teeth, and walked out of the main passage shakily, and his figure appeared in the void outside the battleship. However, all the experts in the surrounding void ignored him. Their gazes were fixed on the main passageway behind Yin Qi, and they locked onto him. "There's more, of course there's more." Yin Qi was stunned, and then smiled awkwardly. He bowed to the surrounding like a grandson, and slowly walked out. He still held the white flag in one hand, and the other hand, he gestured to the main passage behind him. Soon, Yin Ba walked out. Then Yin Jiu. Then, one by one, the clansmen of the Een Demon clan followed. It was almost like a long line. One by one, they walked out in succession. Their faces all looked like they had just lost their parents. After exiting the main passage, they obediently lined up in the void outside the ship one by one, as if they were waiting to be inspected. Realizing that their ancestor was an imposter who had abandoned them, those guys lost all their temper. The only thing they could think of now was to behave themselves with their tails between their legs, hoping to appease the fury of countless experts from the fleets of more than 100 top forces in space. At this moment, The surrounding void was completely silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the main entrance of the Black Lion battleship. At the same time, some eyes were patrolling the other parts of the enormous Black Lion battleship, in case the Netherworld young master hid himself and walked out from other directions and left quietly. However, this void was now under the full power suppression of thousands of void oscillators. Coupled with the fact that there were 8 supreme experts of the universe who were only several hundred miles away from the void and shrouded it with layers upon layers of divine senses, no matter how good the concealment technique or secret technique was, it would definitely be exposed. Therefore, although the Netherworld young master didn't appear in the main passage or other positions, the experts in space weren't worried at all. When the map was exhausted, the dagger would appear. However, what no one had expected was that the dagger had been delayed for too long. There were more than 10,000 clansmen of the Demon clan in the Black Lion battleship. When they walked out of the main passage one by one and filled the void outside the battleship, the Netherworld young master still didn't appear. Shenyuan Ziying, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru glanced at each other suspiciously. They had successfully met up with the rest of the clansmen and squeezed into a corner. She even lowered her voice and muttered to herself, "What the hell is this guy doing? Wearing down their patience? But what's the use? He hasn't left, has he? Look at the expressions of these clansmen of the Demon clan. It's as if they've all died. This clan is disagreeable. They wouldn't be like this unless they've lost all hope." Although the 3 of them knew of Yi Xian's methods, the current situation was still like this. Under such circumstances, even a supreme expert of the universe wouldn't be able to leave quietly. Therefore, even they were certain that Yi Xian was still inside the Black Lion. Zhao Qianru's guess was just a casual guess. At this moment, all the clansmen of the Demon clan in the Black Lion battleship had come out. There was no one at the main passage of the Starry Sky Fortress. Outside, there was only a black mass. However, the gazes of many experts in the void were still fixed there. Yin Qi also saw the problem at this moment. He complained in his heart. His face twitched a few times, and he turned his head to look at a kind-looking expert hundreds of miles away. He swallowed his saliva and said weakly, Senior, everyone has come out and gathered. There's no one in the Black Lion battleship. Can we start the next step?" In his opinion, since they surrendered, they naturally had to give an explanation. No matter if it was circumcision, compensation or other humiliating terms, as long as these fellows were willing to negotiate, there would be no problem. At least they wouldn't have to worry about their lives. "How dare you? How dare you fool me?" The old man whom Yin Qi was interested in was the imperial elder of the everlasting dynasty, Long Ziwen. Although he looked kind, he had a violent temper. Before Yin Qi could finish speaking, he roared and almost slapped him to death on the spot. "No, the little bastard you're looking for, he's gone." Yin Qi was so anxious that he was about to cry. In the end, he told the truth. "More than 2 hours ago, just before I raised the white flag, I found that the secret room he entered was already empty. We are also victims. That guy is not the young master of the Netherworld at all. He must be lying. I don't know what kind of trick he used, but he disappeared just like that." At the end of his words, Yin Qi spread out his hands. He looked so dejected that he almost sat down and wailed on the spot. His demeanor and expression didn't seem to be fake. The 8 powerful experts looked at each other, and an extremely bad feeling surged in their hearts. In the distance, Zhan Tu and ancestor Wu Mei, who had been waiting in ambush, couldn't sit still anymore. They showed themselves in the void and turned into 2 streams of flowing arrows, flying straight into the main passage of the Black Lion battleship. At the same time, anxious words were heard. "Fellow cultivators, half of you stay outside to guard, in case there's a trick." Chapter 3458. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio, the third form, whoosh. A ray of light so weak that even his divine sense could not detect flashed past. Then, Yi Xian stepped out of a void vortex that had suddenly appeared. As soon as he pulled his hind leg out, the void vortex behind him completely disappeared without a trace. Even the fluctuations in the void were extremely weak. The range that it spread out was not more than 10 feet, which was only slightly bigger than Yi Xian's body. It was also because of this that when he stepped into the same void vortex in the independent cabin of the Black Lion, he could leave so quietly. Even though there were 10 powerful beings of universe in the void around the fortress, they did not sense him at all. Although it was not the first time that he had used the universal coordinate jumping ability of the system's title, there had never been so many powerful beings of universe guarding nearby, including the time in the 6th palace of the 10 ultimates. Therefore this time, after successfully leaving without attracting anyone's attention, he once again had a clear understanding of the devouring system's ability. It was really hard to believe that this was just a technological product of the human race's technological race. Back then, the human race's technological pioneer Xingbo was really amazing. His talent was simply amazing. Until now, there were still too many unexplainable things about the devouring system that he left behind. Xingbo back then was probably not as simple as a technological pioneer. Unconsciously, Yi Xian was lost in thought for a while. But soon, he shook his head and dispelled the thoughts in his mind. The time and place were not suitable. Looking around, he quickly saw his surroundings clearly. It was the Yin pool in the heart of the Yin demon clan's nest in the second universe, where he had left the interstellar coordinates not long ago. The reason why he chose to return here instead of the Death Star vortex in the third universe was that this place still had value. Yi Xian did not intend to let go of this pool of innate Yin cold spiritual liquid. Before he left, he had to take it with him. In addition, his nether body also needed to be healed and restored here. This was the Yin nest's forbidden area. Apart from a few elders and the leader of the Yin demon clan, Yin Di, no other clansmen were allowed to set foot here. Therefore, Yi Xian was not worried at all, even though there were still many of his clansmen left in the Yin's nest. As for the patriarch Yin Emperor in the depths of the Yin pond, he was in a life-and-death seclusion. Before he broke through beyond the universe realm and evolved his bloodline into the netherworld physique, he couldn't come out of seclusion. But now Yin Emperor, who was at the peak of the universe realm, had been in seclusion at the bottom of the Yin pond for several hundred years, but there was no sign of him making a breakthrough. Yi Xian didn't believe that things could be so coincidental that Yin Emperor would make a breakthrough just as he quietly returned and began to treat his injuries. It was precisely because of this that Yi Xian could be said to be extremely confident. He directly sat down cross-legged in the depths of the Yin pool, circulated the nether body, and started to recuperate. The innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid was not something that could be found anywhere. In the entire second universe, there was only one such place, and it was the birthplace of the Yin demon clan. It could be said that every drop of innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid in the Yin pond was a treasure. For the Yin demons, one drop of innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid could sustain their cultivation for a year. It was enough to show how precious it was. But this was the second time that Yi Xian had bathed in the Yin pond. At this moment, his entire body was immersed in the boundless innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid. He sat cross-legged and gradually sank to the bottom of the Yin pond. As the nether body circulated, Yi Xian's injuries from the corpse ancestor Han Ba's attack began to slowly heal. As the saying goes, break and rebuild. This time, although Yi Xian's nether body was far from reaching that level of breaking, it was extremely serious. After all, after taking that attack from the corpse ancestor Han Ba, his nether body had reached a state where it could only maintain its current state, and he couldn't use the nether claw to attack anymore. At this moment, as the large amount of innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid in the Yin pond turned into pure innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid and entered his body through the 108,000 pores on his body, Yi Xian's nether body seemed to be nourished by an endless drizzle. Not only did it rapidly heal itself, but it also improved in some way. A small part of the special energy transformed from the innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid was used to heal Yi Xian's nether body. But more than half followed his nether body and was absorbed by the dark green withered claw that represented the bloodline ability of the nether claw, which was suspended above Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. Gradually, some complicated and obscure patterns appeared on the surface of the dark green withered claw. It became more and more simple, and exuded an aura of vicissitudes. Faintly, there seemed to be circles of invisible mysterious ripples that rippled out from Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. They passed through his nether body and appeared in the Yin pond outside his body. These invisible mysterious ripples were clearly related to Yi Xian's nether claw bloodline ability. At this moment, they rippled out from Yi Xian's sea of consciousness and appeared in the Yin pond, gradually affecting the enormous pool of innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid. Some kind of ripples occurred, as if some kind of resonance. In the end, it affected the entire pool of innate Yin chilling spiritual liquid. Moreover, a certain cave dwelling at the bottom of the Yin pond that had been completely sealed off by a restriction seemed to be affected by this mysterious resonance. At the entrance of the cave dwelling, a translucent black light curtain appeared, and this light curtain gradually began to ripple. This was the place where the Yin Emperor, the patriarch of the Yin demon race, cultivated in seclusion. At this moment, the mysterious power of the Netherclaw bloodline ability in Xianxia's sea of consciousness had passed through the black light barrier of the cave dwelling and seeped into the cave dwelling. Xianxia was completely unaware of all this. At this moment, his entire body and mind were immersed in the complicated patterns on the dark green claw that hovered in the air above his sea of consciousness. Even though he too did not know why all of this was happening, he vaguely understood that this was a sign that his nether body was evolving. Along with the evolution of the nether body, the corresponding bloodline ability, the Netherclaw, would become even more powerful. Previously, when he used the Netherclaw bloodline ability, he could only manifest two forms. The first was the dark green claw, and the second was the claw manifestation Netherclaw. The complicated patterns that gradually appeared on the dark green claw hovering in the air above Xianxia's sea of consciousness represented the third transformation of this bloodline ability. However, the third transformation was even more powerful. It clearly couldn't be fully manifested with just this one evolution. After an unknown period of time, when Xianxia's nether body was completely repaired and his battle prowess recovered, the surface of the dark green withered claw that floated above his sea of consciousness was completely covered by this ancient and complicated cryptic pattern. However, the patterns were very faint and blurry. This meant that the evolution this time wasn't complete, and the third transformation of the Netherclaw bloodline ability couldn't be manifested yet. Chapter 3459. Translator, Exodus Tales Editor, Exodus Tales Refining Yen Luo. I didn't expect the Netherworld Claw to have so many forms. Just the second form of the Netherworld Claw was already so powerful. How powerful will the third form be? I'm really looking forward to it. Xianxia's eyes lit up, and a satisfied smile slowly appeared on his face as he muttered to himself. He wasn't in a hurry. The harder it was to complete the third form, the more powerful it would be. Faintly, Xianxia started to look forward to it. Presumably, the next time he had the opportunity to encounter an energy that could allow the nether body to evolve, the third transformation of this bloodline ability should be able to be completely revealed. And now, although the innate chilling spirit liquid was useless, it could at most be used to repair the netherworld body in the future. At this time, the familiar system notification quietly sounded in Xianxia's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Your physical body's qi and blood realm has increased. Current realm. Level 6 Grotto Heaven Realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Your physical body's qi and blood realm has increased. Level 7 Grotto Heaven Realm. As expected, even the Netherworld Claw that was floating above his sea of consciousness had started to evolve towards its third form. The benefits that Xianxia's Netherworld body had obtained were obvious. It was reflected in his original body, which was the evolution of his physical body. He had taken another solid step forward. Level 10 Grotto Heaven Realm Late Stage. Xianxia clenched his fists and muttered to himself. There was a surge of confidence in his chest. Previously, his physical body's qi and blood realm was at level 5 Grotto Heaven Realm, which was the middle stage. But now, it was at level 7 Grotto Heaven Realm, which was the late stage. Although they were still in the same realm, the gap between the middle stage and late stage was still very big. If he were to face either the fallen demon son or the demon dust woman now, the result of the battle would probably not be a tie. Xianxia was absolutely confident that he could suppress them one by one. Of course, a big battle was unavoidable. After all, he had only advanced by 2 small stages. It was impossible for him to instantly crush opponents who were on par with him. But even so, Xianxia was very satisfied. But when he thought of the zombie king Tuoba Linfeng who unexpectedly didn't die, his mood became heavy again. Although he had already obtained Yu Yen Luo, it would not be so easy to capture the zombie king, Ta Ba Linfeng. Other than gathering a powerful elite zombie army under his command, that fellow had unexpectedly evolved into a heavenly demon body. His cultivation had soared to the late stage of the profound light realm, which was the 11th great realm. He was afraid that when Xianxia finally found him, his cultivation would at least be at the void realm. Thinking of this, Xianxia shook his head and bitterly smiled. Normal cultivators at the void realm were difficult to deal with. With Xianxia's various powerful methods, it was possible to kill them, but capturing them alive would add endless variables. This was a long way to go, and the pressure on his shoulders was still very heavy. After tidying up his mood, Xianxia did not leave. He quickly took out the Yu Yen Luo from the primordial era in his undying world. Even though this treasure had not been refined by him, because of the few strands of the primordial era's incomplete spiritual sense sealed within the treasure, one of the corpse ancestor, Hidorigami, had fully awakened. Therefore, before this treasure was refined, it was obviously under the control of Hidorigami. Because of this, if one wanted to refine this treasure, they would first have to go through Hidorigami. This was absolutely a headache for the other experts in the starry sky. Because corpse ancestor Hanba was in existence at the advanced stage of the universe realm. So, one had to possess a cultivation that surpassed the universe realm in order to suppress her. It could be said that even if Long Ziwen and the other Cosmos realm experts joined forces to temporarily suppress Hidorigami and seize the treasure, they would not be able to refine this treasure. After all, the 10 of them could join forces to suppress Hidorigami, but to refine this treasure. Even if the 10 of them were willing, they would not be able to refine the same treasure together. However, to Yi Xian, this most troublesome problem had become something that he didn't need to worry about at all. With the headless corpse of the infant, the corpse ancestor Hanba took the initiative to recognize him as his master. It was also because of this that Yi Xian was able to casually absorb the treasure into his body. It was no different from refining it. However, the necessary refining process was still necessary. Otherwise, if Yi Xian wanted to display the power of this treasure, he would have to rely on Hidorigami, who was like a spirit of the treasure. That would be too troublesome. At this moment, Bao Luo transformed into a wisp of pink light that shot out from Yi Xian's body. He immediately floated in the cold water of the pond in front of him, and as the scales in the pond undulated, due to the fact that his power was completely restrained, it was only the size of 2 palms, making him look like an ordinary silk cloth soaked in water. However, on the surface of this seemingly ordinary pink silk cloth, there were 6 vivid female cultivators. There were 3 of them. These 6 female cultivators looked like figures embroidered on ordinary silk cloth. However, upon closer inspection, they were extremely delicate. Even their eyes were extremely vivid. Under the insight of divine sense, the tiny pores on the exposed skin of the hands and necks of the figures were extremely clear. The 6 figures, each with a different temperament and aura, were all stunning without exception. Their figures were even more heaven-defying. Perhaps the 3 girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, would not lose in terms of beauty, but their temperament was obviously inferior. After all, these 6 figures were all the top powerful figures of the primordial age. Their aura was a kind of peerless temperament that people could only look up to. His original body was second only to the golden divine dragon and the void giant turtle, who were at the supreme level of the remote antiquity. His incomplete spiritual sense was already at the grand completion of the universe realm, which showed how powerful he was. Naturally, he was far more powerful than the 3 women of the Purplish Warbler who had not yet grown up. Among them, the 3 figures in front of Bao Luo clearly had a gentler temperament, while the 3 figures behind him had a more sinister and ferocious temperament. This should be the difference between good and evil. Hanba the corpse ancestor was one of the 3 beautiful figures on the back of Bao Luo. Amongst the 6 figures, only the aura of the corpse ancestor Hanba was the most obvious, whereas the other 5 were extremely dim. Obviously, they hadn't awakened yet. So this is the 6 paths of desolation's most powerful beings' incomplete spiritual sense source? In this lifetime, these are 6 terrifying existences at the perfection stage of the universe realm. If all of them awaken like the corpse ancestor and Hanba, then wouldn't this young master's tent instantly possess 6 almighty generals? As he muttered to himself, Yi Xian's eyes blazed with a fiery light, and a feeling of incomparable anticipation surged in his heart. Chapter 3460. Emperor. The process of refining the treasure hunt luster was very smooth. Yi Xian didn't encounter any obstacles. In just a few minutes, he successfully refined the treasure hunt luster. Of course, this was all because he had the help of the fully awakened Hidorigami corpse ancestor inside the treasure hunt luster. Previously, when Hidorigami corpse ancestor was still in the outside world and hadn't entered the treasure hunt luster, Yi Xian could communicate with her verbally. Of course, this kind of communication was almost non-existent. The situation at that time didn't give them the time to do so. But ever since Hidorigami corpse ancestor entered the treasure hunt luster, Yi Xian had lost contact with her even though the treasure hunt luster had been absorbed into his body. This was all because Yi Xian hadn't refined the treasure hunt luster yet. And now, as the treasure hunt luster was being refined, Yi Xian immediately received Hidorigami corpse ancestor's consciousness from the treasure hunt luster. What surprised him was that Hidorigami corpse ancestor's first consciousness was that she needed to be healed. Moreover, She clearly said that she had sensed the rich innate chilling spiritual liquid in the surroundings. It was very beneficial to her injuries, but she needed a large amount. She was asking for Yi Xian's opinion. This made Yi Xian feel a little strange. A great expert from the primordial era, an existence at the peak of the 9th step of the universe realm, needed to absorb energy to heal her injuries, but she was actually asking for his opinion so carefully. From her words, it seemed that she would immediately give up if Yi Xian didn't agree. This really made him feel speechless. But thinking about it, it was understandable. It seemed very normal. This was because in the eyes of the corpse ancestor, even if Yi Xian wasn't the headless infant corpse from back then, he definitely had an extremely close relationship with the headless infant corpse. This could be seen from the fact that when she heard the headless infant corpse's roar, she immediately rushed out of the encirclement and kowtowed to Yi Xian, calling out to him as her master. In that unprecedented battle back then, the headless infant corpse was an existence that could contend against the will of the heavenly way of the untainted land, which was suspected to be the green eye of the heavenly way. Although Yi Xian did not know his specific origins and details, he vaguely had a guess in his heart. Back then, the headless baby corpse had countless powerful creatures of the untainted land under its command. There were 108 supreme beings of the remote antiquity like the golden divine dragon, the void tortoise, the desolate Xianxia, and the netherworld emperor. On the other hand, the corpse ancestor, Hidorigami, was merely a top-rate almighty of the primordial era all those years ago, and he was a level weaker than the exalts of the primordial era like the divine gold dragon. Headless infant corpses must have at least hundreds of such existences under their command. Therefore, even if Yi Xian was only closely related to the headless infant corpse, and not himself for Hidorigami, he was an existence that she absolutely had to respect and revere. Not to mention that she was only an incomplete wisp of the origin of spiritual sense now. It could be said that if Yi Xian really refused, the wisp of Hidorigami's incomplete wisp of origin of spiritual sense in the treasure tool desire for smoke would definitely obey and immediately give up the idea of absorbing the surrounding innate chilling spiritual liquid to heal his injuries. But that was obviously impossible. Yi Xian would not do that. Anyway, it was someone else's thing. It would be a waste not to use it. Although his netherworld body would need this innate chilling spiritual liquid in the future, Hidorigami, the corpse ancestor, was obviously more important to him. Moreover, Yi Xian had already collected 10,000 cubic meters of the innate chilling spiritual liquid, which was more than enough for him to use for a period of time. Moreover, there was such a large pool here. Hidorigami, the corpse ancestor, could not use up all of it. Yi Xian could still take away the rest of the innate chilling spiritual liquid in one go. That was the reason why he had come here again. Soon, Yi Xian gave a reply. Hidorigami, the corpse ancestor, did not say anything else. As a top mighty figure in the remote antiquity era and one of the 4 ancestors of the corpse Dao, she had a rebellious temperament. Even when facing Yi Xian, who was closely related to the headless infant corpse, she could not be too friendly. Soon, Yi Xian felt that the innate chilling spiritual liquid in the surroundings began to rush into the treasure tool desire for smoke floating in front of him. At this time, he was still immersed in the depths of the pool. In front of him was the treasure tool desire for smoke. As a large amount of innate chilling spiritual liquid flowed into it, a small whirlpool gradually formed above the treasure tool desire, and the range of its influence gradually expanded. What surprised Yi Xian was that in less than a minute, the entire pond was affected. The water of the pond, which was originally just rippling scales, started to ripple. Fortunately, it wasn't very violent, otherwise, it would have attracted the attention of the demon clansmen who were guarding the nest. Of course, even if that was the case, Yi Xian was not afraid. There was nothing to worry about. At most, he would put on the airs of an old ancestor and scold a few old bastards. Another 2 minutes passed, and the water level of the pool had decreased significantly. According to Yi Xian's estimation, about 1/5 of the innate chilling spiritual liquid had been absorbed into the treasure tool desire for smoke. At this time, the treasure tool desire for smoke finally transmitted a message from Hidorigami, indicating that she had obtained enough energy. Now, she needed to refine and recover from her injuries. 3 minutes ago, the whirlpool above the treasure tool desire had disappeared. Yi Xian immediately waved his hand and stored the treasure tool into his undying world. With a flip of his palm, he took out a bottle-shaped storage magic treasure. He had a lot of these things in his possession, and he'd obtained a lot of treasures and resources from extorting them time and time again. Not to mention, Yi Xian had a huge fortune before this? Yi Xian had already stored a bottle of this innate, chilling spiritual liquid, a total of 10,000 cubic meters. And now, the treasure tool desire for smoke had an even larger capacity of 100,000 cubic meters. According to Yi Xian's estimation, there was about 40 to 50,000 cubic meters of innate, chilling spiritual liquid left in the pool. The treasure tool desire in his hand was enough to store it all. Following the activation of the treasure control technique, a powerful suction force immediately emanated from the cyan spatial bottle in Yi Xian's palm. The innate cold spirit liquid in the pond was quickly poured into the mouth of the spatial bottle at a speed that was even faster than when it was absorbed by the corpse ancestor drought demon. At this time, if one were to look down from the top of the pool, they would see that the surface of the entire pool was dropping at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a short 2 minutes, Yi Xian's body, which was originally soaking in the innate, chilling spiritual liquid, was revealed. And the surface of the pool was still dropping. Finally, after another 2 minutes, the entire pool was completely dried up. Not a single drop of innate, chilling spiritual liquid was left. This time it was all gone. At this time, Yi Xian's figure was floating above the pool. Seeing that the last drop of innate, chilling spiritual liquid had been sucked into the bottle, he immediately sealed the bottle and put it into his undying world with a flip of his hand. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a dense black light suddenly blossomed from the bottom of the completely dried-up pond. Immediately after, a low and sinister sneer entered Yi Xian's ears, causing his body to violently tremble. GGG. Although you inadvertently helped this old man break through the bloodline shackles and successfully reach atavism, forming the nether body and stepping into the Star-Lord realm, you destroyed the foundation of my race, leaving not a single drop of innate, chilling spiritual liquid behind. Chapter 3461. Planar coordinate jump, little doll. Tell me, should I kill you? Or should I kill you? As this sinister voice sounded, the light screen at the bottom of the pond suddenly flickered again. Then, a figure walked out from the black light screen. He wore a black robe, had black hair, and a black beard. He looked to be in high spirits and was around 50 years old. He had the formless majesty of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. In addition, he referred to himself as this emperor, so it was obvious that this person should be the patriarch of the Devil clan, Emperor. Yi Xian's heart sank, and his expression immediately darkened. Emperor had been in seclusion for several hundred years, and it was a life-and-death seclusion. If his bloodline couldn't reach ancestral awakening and form the netherworld physique, he wouldn't be able to come out. This was no longer a secret in the 3 universes. The reason for this was because this person had been forced to do so. The demon race wasn't liked by other races in the 2nd universe. Although they didn't make many enemies, they were still a race with more than 10,000 people. It was inevitable that they would stumble when they were outside. Therefore, there were many enemies who were secretly eyeing them. Furthermore, the demon race had to contend with both the myriad Luo Federation and the overlord of the 1st universe, the Tianji race. They were opportunists who wanted to take advantage of both sides and curry favor with both sides. Originally, this was a dangerous action that was equivalent to walking on the edge of a blade. Under such circumstances, if there were no top-notch powerhouses in the clan, they would have no confidence at all. Even though the clan leader, Emperor, had already reached the 15th Great Realm, the Great Circle of Universe Realm 9th stage cultivation several hundred years ago, for an enormous clan, this level of strength was clearly not enough. Among the top 10 races in the 2nd universe, there was an existence that surpassed the 15th Grand Realm of Universe Master. There was even more than one. As for the human race of the 3rd universe and the overlord of the 1st universe, the Tianji race, there was no need to mention them. The Heaven's Legacy tribe announced that their tribe leader Di Yi's cultivation was at the 15th level and that he was a supreme expert of the universe. This kind of statement only made people laugh. If one took it seriously, they would probably die very miserably. Such a childish existence wouldn't be able to survive for long in the current starry sky environment. It was precisely because of this that Emperor made a grand vow to publicly announce that he was going into seclusion and wouldn't come out until he made a breakthrough. And now, since he had already walked out of the cave at the bottom of the lake, the truth was already very obvious. Coupled with his words, Yi Xian instantly confirmed some things. Not only had Emperor broken through the universe realm, becoming an existence that surpassed the universe realm, even his bloodline had successfully returned to its ancestral state, obtaining the netherworld physique. Originally, the Demon clan only had a little bit of the netherworld bloodline. Although the growth paths of the starry sky experts were different, to put it bluntly, it was actually a variety of different evolutionary methods. In the second universe, the path to becoming stronger was basically the evolution of one's own bloodline. In other words, it was atavism or even transcendence. Before going into seclusion, Yin Emperor, who had the cultivation of the 15th Great Realm, Universe Realm 9, had already reached perfection in his own bloodline and was about to undergo a qualitative change. Following this breakthrough, the netherworld body formed, and the innate talent imprinted in his bloodline would immediately appear. In other words, if nothing unexpected happened, the Yin Emperor in front of him was most likely the same as Yi Xian. He had already grasped the netherworld claw's magical ability. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's heart immediately sank again. No one in the current world was clearer than him about how powerful the netherworld claw was. Currently, he was only in the 10th Great Realm, Heavenly Passage Realm 7, but the power of this bloodline magical ability was already so powerful. Yi Xian really couldn't imagine what kind of terrifying scene it would be when a heaven-defying existence that surpassed the universe realm used the netherworld claw with a wave of his hand. At the very least, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it, and even escaping would be a problem. If it was the 15th Great Realm Universe Realm expert, Yi Xian might have been able to use all kinds of methods to barely escape, but now, he was facing a super old monster that surpassed the universe realm. If he wanted to live, there were only two paths he could take. He could directly ask the headless infant corpse to suppress the other party. Or he could directly use the interstellar coordinate jump ability to escape in an instant. The former method was naturally the most reliable. Once the infant corpse took action, the other party would only be beaten up. To put it more harshly, the Yin Emperor didn't even have the qualifications to be beaten up by the infant corpse. As for the latter method, Yi Xian was confident in facing the 15th Great Realm Universe Realm expert. But the current Yin Emperor was a super old monster that surpassed the universe realm. No matter how fast the interstellar coordinate jump ability of the system title was, it still needed time to activate. Yi Xian didn't dare to be sure whether he could successfully use the coordinate jump ability to escape under the watchful eyes of the other party at such a close distance. In addition, the place where Yi Xian was standing was already the Yin Pond where he had branded the interstellar coordinates in the second universe. If he wanted to use this method to escape, he would have to directly activate it. The interstellar coordinate jump ability was on the level of the first universe's black hole, or the third universe's Death Star vortex. This was even less safe. Although Yi Xian had experienced the interstellar coordinate jump ability many times, he had never experienced it before. If it took even longer, Yi Xian might not even know how he died when facing the Yin Emperor. It was too risky. These thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning. Yi Xian bitterly smiled inwardly. He couldn't count on the headless infant corpse. That fellow was just a brat. When he wanted to attack, he would naturally attack. However, if Yi Xian took the initiative to ask him, he wouldn't even respond. His only choice was to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability, but before that, he had to at least use some methods to distract the other party's attention. Or perhaps, tie him down. There was no need to think about the Netherworld Claw and Fallen Sky Bow bloodline abilities. There was no doubt that they were powerful. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's cultivation was too weak. The power he displayed couldn't cause any trouble to the super old monster that had surpassed the universe realm. Even the Rai D Seal and Thunder Origin Bead were useless. Yi Xian had already tried it in the 6th Palace of the 10 Ultimates in the 3rd Universe's Cultivation Camp. The Thunder Origin Bead couldn't even injure the core of a universe realm expert like Tian Chenzi. It could only cause him to fall into an awkward situation, let alone a super old monster that had surpassed the universe realm. Perhaps when Yi Xian's cultivation was stronger in the future, he could compress and condense the Thunder Origin Bead a second time. This would give the bead even more power, but right now, it was useless. It was the same for the Farmer God Cauldron. It might not be able to seal the super old monster in front of him. After pondering for a while, Yi Xian suddenly realized that although he had many precious treasures and powerful abilities in his hands, his cultivation was too weak. Once he encountered a true super expert, none of them could be used. Fortunately, he had just refined the Yen Luo not long ago. Even if it was stored in the undying world in his body, Yi Xian could directly communicate with corpse ancestor Hanba. With her battle prowess that could rival 10 universe realm experts, even if she couldn't defeat the Yin Emperor in front of her, she could at least contend with him for a period of time. Thinking of this, Yi Xian secretly gave orders to Hanba as he sneered at the Yin Emperor, who was currently soaring into the air from the bottom of the Yin Pond.